Hey there, kids. It's time to sit because Battleground Casual is on. Here's Aaron or Matt.
Wow. Powerful. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but every time I hear that song, it just hits me in an emotional way. I've heard that it's actually made a lot of blind dogs see again, which is really impressive. Credit to Adele. I expect this to win Oscars, Grammys, ESPYs, Golden Globes, all of it. It's absolutely beautiful. And it's enough to make a grown man cry. I'm sure if we sent that song to Vladimir Putin, he would just stop and realize, hey, there's good things in this world. Why take it away from everyone?
I'd say that's the most outrageous thing we'll hear tonight, but you should wait till some of the stories I'll
It's
bring
not
up in a moment.
outrageous.
Welcome, guys, to the show. Welcome back to the latest episode of Battleground Casual, where we will be, of course, as the title says, getting into Across the Spiderverse later. But we got some stuff to get to first. I am, as always, your host, Aaron Knoll, joined, of course, by my co-host / fanboy, Matt Beer. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing all right. Rest in peace to the Unabomber. He died today. So, there we go.
Yeah, man really knew how to blow up.
Yeah, well, he was a smart man until they did tests on him. And then we all know how that went. UK people are soft too, but hey, that's another story for another time.
Can you stop getting us in trouble in other countries, dude?
Hey, tell them to stop whining and moaning about 86-degree weather. It's nothing. Chillax, okay? Get an air conditioner. Oh, wait, you guys don't have those. US 1, UK 0.
All right, we're going to stop talking about that, and we're going to instead move into the stuff that we don't want to talk about, which I feel like is some kind of oxymoron, but that's how this works. This is the first segment of the show, and these are the non-starters. These are the news stories that took place over the last week that are big enough that people will want to hear about them, but I don't want to talk about them. So instead, I'm going to quickly read a write-up of them and then move on. So let's get into it. First non-starter. The fourth Captain America film has announced this week that its title is changing from Captain America New World Order to Captain America Brave New World. Though Marvel hasn't confirmed the reason why, it is believed that it's because the term New World Order has seen a recent rise in usage in modern politics that they don't want to be associated with. This is a non-starter because I don't want to dive into that shit at fucking all. Chris Pratt confirmed this week that Illumination is planning to move forward with a direct sequel to the Super Mario Bros. Movie in addition to the spin-offs previously announced by Nintendo. Pratt added, however, that there is no time frame on the movie's development as it won't begin until the writer's strike has ended. The creative team for the original film, directors Aaron Horvath and Michael Jelenic, as well as writer Matthew Fogel, are all already on board and ready to move forward, but the three were actively working on another project when the strike began, and so they must finish that when the strike lifts before they can begin work on Super Mario 2. This is a non-starter because, of course, it's getting a sequel, and of course, it's delayed. That is Hollywood now. Speaking of Nintendo, they are very close to completing a deal to license the Legend of Zelda series to Universal for adaptation. It is believed that Illumination Animation would be the one to take the production on, but this has not been confirmed. This is a non-starter because that's both incredibly obvious and vague. Jake Paul is teaming with the production company Mandalay Pictures, best known currently for producing the Ben Affleck film Air, to produce and make his feature film debut in a movie that is believed to be an 8 Mile style film about his life. Paul's only real prior acting experience comes from his time on the Disney Channel show Bizaardvark, for which he was known not for his acting talent, but just happening to co-star alongside current global superstar Olivia Rodrigo. He was fired from the network after 2 of the show's 3 seasons. This is a non-starter for very obvious reasons. I'm not giving Jake Paul more airtime than I need to. The Johnny Depp comeback is on as his first film post-trial has been picked up for theatrical release in the U.S. Jean Dubarry, which debuted at Cannes earlier this year, is a French-language film starring, written, and directed by French filmmaker Maïwenn Besco and portrays the last known mistress of King Louis XV, played by Johnny Depp. This film received mixed reviews at best. The film has no release date, and this is a non-starter because if this wasn't his first film back, no one would care about this film. And speaking of comebacks, although in this case, unfortunately, Bryan Singer is said to be working on a documentary which dives into the sexual assault allegations placed against himself, in which he will apparently prove his innocence. And that's just gross that can get made. That's pretty obvious. With that said, though, we are going to go from here over to the stuff that Matt and I like to talk about before we go ahead and bring in our excited guests. This is the box office report, but of course it's a week late because that's how we roll. What happened in the top 10 last weekend, even though the top 10 from this weekend is basically almost finished. Yeah. Thanks, and welcome back once again to another edition of the Way Too Late Weekly Box Office Report. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse had a huge opening weekend last week. The Spider-Man sequel opened to $120.7 million in just 3 days at the box office. No matter what way you slice it, this is a resounding success for the franchise. If you want to talk about 2023 box office, it is the second highest opening of the year, just ahead of Guardians Volume 3's May opening of $118.4 million. When you want to look at Sony Pictures Animation overall, it is now their highest opening weekend ever for the studio, and it more than doubles the previous weekend record holder of Hotel Transylvania 2, which opened to $48.5 million. When compared to the first Spiderverse film, which opened back in 2018 to $35.4 million, it saw roughly just over an $85 million increase. And overall in the Spider-Man franchise, it takes the third highest opening of the franchise, sitting only behind Spider-Man No Way Home and Spider-Man 3. Moving on to The Little Mermaid, it dropped 56.7% from week 1 to week 2 to bring in $41.4 million. As of the current writing of this write-up, which was written on June 5th, the domestic total is $191.6 million, although at this point I believe it is close to, if not having already passed the $200 million mark, although that's just me spitting. Overall, it sits in 9th place in terms of Disney live-action remakes, about $10 million behind the gross of Cinderella. The Boogeyman opened to 3rd place, making $12.4 million in an okay start at the box office. Guardians Volume 3 continues to hold well, lapping Fast X as I predicted last week to take 4th with $10.7 million. Fast X takes 5th place with $9.6 million. The Super Mario Bros. Movie drops out of the top 5 for the first time after 8 weeks, taking 6th place with $3.4 million. The movie has also passed the $1.3 billion mark in its worldwide total this week. The bottom part of the chart saw some flips from last week. About My Father holds better than its most direct competitor, The Machine, with the De Niro flick grossing $2.17 million to take 7th, and The Machine posting $1.7 million to take 8th. Similarly, the limited release You Hurt My Feelings takes 9th place with $770,000, going ahead of Kandahar, which drops to 10th, taking $750,000. Evil Dead Rise drops out of the top 10 after an impressive 6-week run and an excellent box office haul, still remaining Warner Brothers' highest grossing film of the year so far, as does Book Club, which drops out of the top 10 after a disappointing run. And I can say, as of the totals from last night that were reported this morning, The Little Mermaid is officially at $212.8 million. So my guess was correct. I just didn't have the number in front of me, so I sounded like a jackass making a prediction. So as always, we'll jump into the main film's box office when we talk about it later in the show. But as for the remaining films on that list, what stands out to you the most?
I mean, Spiderverse being second as far as opening weekends go for the year. Had a much larger opening weekend than the first one did, and it looks like it's going to hold pretty well this weekend. And then I guess the other thing, Little Mermaid, it's doing well, in the US. Like, it's doing pretty good numbers. It's doing better than Fast X in the US, but worldwide, it's not doing good at all. It's doing quite bad. Yeah, I mean, right now it's $141 million everywhere else. That's not really good at all.
Yeah, as of last reporting from yesterday, it's 212 domestically, 354 worldwide, which is obviously not great that much of its money has been made solely in this one market.
Yeah, that's not good at all. But I mean,
I heard the movie's making literally peanuts in China. Like, I think they're handing out peanuts to get you to go see this movie. That's how little it's actually making.
Well, let's get more people to hate us. Chinese people hate black people, as I said last week. Still true. Well, and again, not everybody in China does.
Still true a week later. Let's make sure
it's still true. And look, I'm sure there's people in China that don't, but the government does. Look at the posters. They hide black people or make them really, really tiny. They don't like black people, but that's understandable. Not understandable. That is
Jesus, Matt, shut up
expected from the people of China or government of China. Guardians is still holding well. 48% drop. is pretty good. And hey, Mario, it's out. It's available to watch at home on VOD. Still doing pretty good. $3.3 million. I mean,
Yeah.
that's good. And it's doing well in China.
Yeah, it is. But both that and Fast are doing really, really well internationally.
Yes.
I'd say to touch on the one thing, first off, I want to go back to the top 5 domestically, which I created this graphic, which I can now update whenever a movie goes into that top 5. It's incredible, despite the fact that the public perception is that Disney is losing its grip hold on success, that 3 of those 5 films are Disney. Like, sure, they don't have the number 1, and I have a hard time seeing, because basically their only 2 major competitors left for the year are the Marvels and Haunted Mansion. Is that it?
I think so.
Like, that's basically what's left for them in terms of to compete. They're not going to break Mario's record. If anyone's going to do it, it's another studio. But like the fact that they still have 3 of the 5 slots, and you got to open pretty fucking big to hit Little Mermaid. Like, this isn't when like John Wick was in the top 5, but it opened to 70 million. Like, a lot of films are now hitting that benchmark very, very easily. You're going to have to hit a high number to beat Little Mermaid, which I think still says they have a good hold on the box office.
Yeah. I mean, and fun fact, 3.5 million is what's made in China. That's not good. But no, looking at the year though,
did that one Asian looking mermaid they put in the movie not do it for them over there? Was that
didn't do
not
it.
enough?
Well, they don't like, the thing about them is
Please
they
don't
don't
say they
like,
don't like black
Asian
people.
people. They don't
want to get attacked.
It's weird that it's not just China, it's other countries, or it's like, you know, there's that debacle with Doctor Strange with they recasted the Ancient One to Tilda Swinton. And the reason why they did it was because, you know, the Asian character, if they would have casted it appropriately, you would have had some countries out that way upset because there's some whole thing.
Oh, it's a stereotype.
It's like Australia and New Zealand hate each other, you know, that type of thing. But I mean, looking at what comes out, I mean, do you think Indiana Jones could pass Mario?
Hell no.
I mean, US-wise?
I think, unfortunately, like, while I don't think the movie is going to be quite the way the cons reviews were making it seem, I think those reviews have inevitably hurt that film's chances at success.
I don't think so. Plus, now it's starting to get seen by more people. It seems like there's more positive reviews coming out, which is to be expected. But, you know, you got Mission Impossible. That might be something that could beat out Mario.
Well, I was going to say, we'll get to that in a second. We'll actually come back to that in just a moment. Before we bring our panelists in, though, the other one I want to talk about is The Boogeyman, which internationally so far, it's earned just under 30 million. Obviously, it opened to about 12.5 here in the U.S. last week. That for basically being counter-programming, that's a pretty good start. The movie was made for, I believe, about 35 million, and its marketing wasn't that big because, quite honestly, I didn't see very many trailers for it. So the fact that it pulled even that much just on counter-programming, I think that's a solid start.
Yeah, I mean, 35 million is what it costs to make, but good opening weekend for that movie. You know, it's probably going to be one of those movies that, you know, in a week or two, it's going to make its money back. Not a big budget movie. It seems like it's a movie more audiences are liking than critics, I believe. So that's pretty good for that movie.
Yeah.
I believe I can pull it up.
It got good
the cinema score. I'm going to pull up the cinema score real quick.
All right. So while you do that, we'll touch back on that before we go into the first topic. I'm going to take the second to introduce our panelists here joining us. What was it?
I think it looks like it's got a B-, so maybe not great.
We'll go ahead and bring in our panelists in. Of course, this is Spiderverse, so of course we had to get some fans. It's okay, I see you running. We had to get some fans in here to talk about this. Now, who knows? They may have hated the film. I haven't actually spoken to either of them personally, but we do have some fans coming in here of the first film to talk about the second one. Joining us first, he is Mr. Jacob Barber. Welcome, sir. How are you feeling tonight?
Feeling good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Also joining us, I believe maybe for the first time on this new rendition of the show. I'm not 100% certain, but I think it is his first time here. We have Noah McCausland. Oh, no, Spider-Man's joining us. Which one are you? Oh, you're still muted.
That is embarrassing. I'm the lame Spider-Man. That's what I am.
Oh, Peter B. Parker's great. What do you mean? We also...
Ben Reilly?
I have to say, I know we're not at the movie yet, but without any context, humbling reality Spider-Man is one of the funniest things I've ever heard. That broke me first. without getting into the specific, that was a funny ass line. But anyways, Jake, it says Jake Reese there. Most people will know him as Tato. He will also be joining us shortly. He is currently on his way home from work and was told that we don't talk about Spiderverse right away, so he is taking his sweet time. So with that said, before we get to Spiderverse, of course, we do have a couple of topics. And it's funny that you bring up Mr. Cruz because Mr. Cruz has been busy as of late. Let's find out what he's doing currently to piss off Hollywood. This week, Universal announced that Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, which was shot in IMAX, had achieved a deal with the company to guarantee Oppenheimer on every IMAX screen in the domestic market for its first 3 weeks, or exactly 21 days, of the film's release. This announcement apparently got a rise out of one Tom Cruise. Cruise, whose film Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 releases the week before, was apparently blindsided by the announcement, and insiders at Puck News claim he is very upset about it. The film's action sequences were converted in post-production to an IMAX ratio in an attempt to make the film as appealing as possible on big screens, but will now only have 9 days in theaters before Oppenheimer takes over those premium IMAX theaters. Cruise himself has gone on a rage through Hollywood. He's personally contacted major distributors, including AMC, Regal, and Cinemark, and has asked for an extension on time in their personal big theaters, the likes of Dolby Cinema, RPX, or XD, including trying to sell them on giving those screens to him over Barbie, which also opens the same week as Oppenheimer. He's also attempting to call on his personal contacts at studios, with not one anonymous studio exec claiming that Cruise is asking studios to either vacate their deals with these big theaters or to move the movies off of their release dates in order to clear room for Mission Impossible. To give you an idea of what's coming out, films that release in the weeks following Oppenheimer include Disney's Haunted Mansion, Sony's Gran Turismo, Warner Brothers' Blue Beetle, and Paramount's own Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If sources are to be believed, this isn't being done for selfish reasons, whatever that means. Cruise, who's been a big proponent of the theatrical exhibition, claims that his film has a greater chance at making more money on those screens, even in later weeks than the films previously listed, due to both the hype behind the Mission Impossible franchise and the hype and love for Cruise himself after Top Gun Maverick. He genuinely seems to believe that Oppenheimer and Mission Impossible both succeeding for weeks on end is a better way for the film industry than all of these little films releasing and potentially eating each other alive. But Oppenheimer's deal could now lock out that possibility unless something changes in Cruise's favor. Okay, so there's a few more details that sort of go with this because I could have made that video 10 minutes long if I wanted to. Basically, it seems as though Cruise was under the impression that because Mission Impossible went through some sort of post-conversion process to appeal to IMAX screens and IMAX formatting, that even though he knew Oppenheimer would take over a lot of IMAX screens, there would still be an allotment of screens that his film could continue to use in addition to Oppenheimer. However, this exclusivity deal basically locks the movie out once its opening week is completed. Apparently, this is part of the reason why just a couple weeks ago they bumped its release date up from Friday to Wednesday, giving it that couple extra days in theaters. And this is also what's led to the reaction of reaching out to theaters, reaching out to studios, basically doing anything that he can to try and give the film more access. So there's one of two ways of looking at this, and that's where we'll start the conversation. This is either because Tom Cruise, similar to Christopher Nolan, funny enough, has been very, very open about his love for the theatrical exhibition, his want to keep theaters as a part of cinema going. Obviously, that was a big push with Top Gun Maverick. He got into multiple arguments with Paramount over the distribution of that film, holding it for theaters, not sending it to streaming early. Obviously, that paid off for him in the end. And so there's a lot of questions around, is this a genuine move from Cruise to try and help the theatrical exhibition in the latter part of the summer when all the big boys that came out at the start, the Guardians, the Marios will definitely be gone, the Spiderverses are kind of out of the way. Is this him genuinely doing something that he thinks will help the box office? Or is this a selfish ploy that's being covered by his public appeal. Matt, I'll go to you first. What are your thoughts?
I'm gonna need somebody else to talk. I didn't listen to any of that because I read an article. I kid you not. There's a man not that far away from where I live who was arrested for shooting at a mouse. He took his gun and was trying to kill a mouse. So I was not paying attention to any of that because I was trying to read, like, what was his thought process of using a gun to shoot a mouse. Only
all right, Jacob, let's go to you.
Did he succeed? Now we'll have to. I want to know more. I'll have to look up that article. Why would you
I have to share it. It's wild.
Shoot a mouse. No, I'm not sure. This is the first time I'm actually hearing about this. I don't really keep up with movie news other than movies I have an interest in, and unfortunately, Mission Impossible just isn't one because I haven't seen the franchise. Actually, I've only seen the first two. I haven't really watched the other four, but no, I mean it sounds like a you snooze you lose sort of a situation. I mean, like obviously Nolan wants his film to succeed. Tom Cruise wants his film to succeed. So I mean, I feel like it's got 9 days, and I feel like the people that want to see this new Mission Impossible movie are going to see it, and they're going to see it the best way possible, which sounds like IMAX. But I think even then, fans of the movie, they're still going to be okay seeing them in just like regular theaters, as long as the film is seen. Like that's what matters, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Noah, what do you think?
My initial thought process is that he's just being selfish because it's Tom Cruise. I mean, just a big name actor, but like looking at it, I mean, he's been paid already, right? Unless his contract stipulates he probably gets like royalties from however many tickets are sold. I don't know, but
I'm sure he does achieve some sort of back end payment, but he's also, in addition to being an actor, he's also the producer of the franchise. So yes, to some extent, he has been paid already, just by way of.
And if he's like a true fan of cinema and wanting to get people into theaters, regardless if it's his movie or not, why not just like be excited for like Oppenheimer? Is this huge movie that everyone's been talking about. The media has been nuts about it. And just like being excited for that movie. It doesn't make sense to me unless he has something to gain. But the contract itself doesn't really make sense to me because like as someone who used to work at a theater, maybe like the opening weekend or maybe the first week a film came out, if it was a big name movie, it was playing in the IMAX theater. And then after that week, another one came in it, or they shared it like on the schedule.
Right.
Like one showing would be this movie, the other showing would be this one. And so this contract about Oppenheimer taking IMAX screens for, was it 3 weeks?
3 weeks, yes.
Bonkers to me. Absolutely bonkers. Like, so, I mean, I'm excited for the movie too.
Which means within that 3 week stipulation, the next 2 weeks that follow, you have The Haunted Mansion and Turtles, both of which are now completely locked out of IMAX screens.
And I think it's going to hurt the theaters because the people that really want to see this are going to see this in like the first week, maybe 2 weeks in IMAX. But besides that, everyone who's like, oh, maybe that's interesting, are probably going to go see it in a standard viewing and not pay like top dollar for an IMAX viewing because maybe they're not as excited because all other people would have seen it earlier. So you're not going to have as many tickets sold for IMAX theaters. So you're hardly filling those IMAX theaters when other movies that are coming out could maybe be performing well in those theaters. So it's just look at it.
I think you make a great point there. My biggest thing with it is like obviously the exclusivity part of it, I don't, you could argue Cruise maybe didn't see that coming, especially because the film Mission Impossible was post converted to fit IMAX ratios. Like, you have to imagine there was some sort of discussion where he invested that money into post production in that sense because he felt the movie would have a good chance at some sort of run on a decent amount of IMAX screens. Most movies wouldn't go to that extent just for 1 week at the theater and then move on. So I get what he's saying in that sense, and you're right. A lot of times theaters will like split, or they'll do some sort of negotiation middle road. But with Oppenheimer securing the contract with IMAX itself, theaters are going to be beholden to follow the rules with this and put Oppenheimer in. For me, it's a question of, and I'll pass this around to you guys as well. Where Cruise's argument isn't fully hitting for me is because I agree with him in the sense of, in terms of a long range run, what movie is going to have better legs after 4 weeks, Oppenheimer or Mission Impossible? I 100% believe Mission Impossible is going to have better legs after 4 weeks. But let's take, for example, because apparently he's going deep into August. So let's take Blue Beetle, for example, which opens 4 to 5 weeks after Mission Impossible. Even if Blue Beetle, like, the marketing doesn't hit, let's say it goes absolutely awry, and let's say it opens slightly better than Shazam. Like, this is like worst case for DC. It opens slightly better than Shazam, and it does 35 to 40 million opening weekend. Are you trying to tell me that you think Mission Impossible, with access to multiple premium theaters all over the country, is going to do close to that in its 4th week and is going to compete with Blue Beetle, even if Blue Beetle flops, all things considered? I just don't see a world in which Mission Impossible, no matter how much love people have for Tom Cruise, I don't see a world in which it holds that well.
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
don't know. I mean, my whole thought, because I read up on it a little bit, my whole thought is, look, if he really wanted it to be on IMAX screens for as long as, possible, this is something that should have been done a long time ago. It's something that
Right.
they should have gotten taken care of a long time ago. I can understand him not being happy about it because, like you said, they did a whole IMAX aspect ratio stuff. So there was obviously a lot of work that went into that to make sure it would fit IMAX screens properly. But Nolan is a big cinema guy too. Like, that's his whole thing. I'm pretty sure he's the one guy that bought that front row seat in the middle, because apparently he does that for all of his movies and any other movie. He buys that one seat. That's what some people have been saying. He's done this a lot. But, I guess for his next one, the next Mission Impossible, you just got to make sure you have that booked way in advance so you don't run into these issues. Because, if you wait too long, there's going to be somebody else getting those screens, because IMAX does make you more money. Granted, you're not going to have IMAX everywhere. Not as many people are going to go see a movie in IMAX, which is why I don't think this is going to affect the box office too much. I think if people want to see it, they're going to go see it, and it's going to make its money. It's going to make its $1 billion. But I think this is a lesson, not just for Tom Cruise, but for everybody that wants their movie in IMAX. Hey, if when your movie's coming out, make sure you reserve the IMAX for however many weeks. That way nobody else does. So, again, I understand why he's upset, but, you can't be too upset. I mean, Christopher Nolan, he's not going to be like, oh, I'm sorry, Tom Cruise. Here, take the IMAX screens. He's not going to do that. It's Christopher Nolan. He's going to be like, oh, yeah, 4 weeks. And we're doing early screenings.
As was brought up in the chat, and I've heard this brought up in discussion online as well, a lot of people have wondered why the film wasn't dated for a 4th of July release, because the week before July 7th is the Friday date. The only 2 movies that are going into wide release are the comedy Joyride and Insidious: The Red Door. A lot of people thought maybe he should have dated it then and then put 2 weeks between. I would say the reason that they didn't do that in the past is because, as we just talked about with Indy, I think a lot of people thought Indy was going to be this big hit. I genuinely wonder if it's going to be now. I don't know. Like, I think it'll still be successful. I think it'll make money, but I think this is going to wind up disappointing Disney, unfortunately, because I think because here's the thing. Indy's a dead franchise. This is a dead franchise for all intents and purposes that you are reviving for one last go around. And even the most positive reviews we've heard so far are like, I mean, yeah, it's better than Crystal Skull, but like, was it worth it?
I'll tell you this: do not underestimate the people that are around my dad's age. Don't underestimate them. Indiana Jones, like what did Crystal Skull do? I wonder. I have to look
No
that
idea.
up. But I'm telling you, you do not underestimate this movie. We've seen movies that like. I know Star Wars is much larger than Indiana Jones, but The Rise of Skywalker made $1 billion, and everybody trashed that movie.
Yeah, so
I think
Transformers, though.
But Transformers until the last night, they were all making $1 billion. But
Listen,
no, you have to understand. Indiana Jones, I think it's a much bigger property than what people are, thinking. This is going. I think they made Kingdom of the Crystal Skull made $790 million. But I'm telling you right now, I think there is a chance it makes more than 150. I think there's a chance it makes 150.
oh,
Opening
you
weekend.
think it's gonna? Because remember,
I'm not going to say it's 100% guaranteed, but I think there's a pretty good chance it will. I think
because Mario's 3-day was 146. So you're saying that Indy has the best chance of anything coming up to break the weekend opening for the year.
Outside of Mission Impossible, I can't think of any other movie that could.
Oh,
I think Indiana Jones or Mission Impossible will do it. I think Indiana Jones has a slightly better chance because they're marketing it as the final Indiana Jones ever. There's a lot of people that love Indiana Jones, and I'm telling you, you have these 40-year-old people, 30-year-old people that love Indiana Jones or grew up with Indiana Jones that can take their kids to go see this final movie with them. And you have the old people, you have like the 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds that love the original movies. I think this is going to be much bigger than what people expect. I think it makes 150.
I can't
See,
I
I'm gonna.
would, like, especially if the movie's good, I would love nothing more than for you to be correct. But like,
And
I guess I
don't think
look
people
at it
care
from the
about what
inverse
French
of
people
like,
say.
all the people who were in their because you're saying all these people in their 30s and their 40s, people who are in their 30s now were born and raised through the 90s and the 2000s, so they only grew up with Indiana Jones if it was shown to them by their parents.
Yeah.
Their kids at the youngest, youngest, obviously they can be super young, but like at the oldest, their kids are teenagers. If they're a teenager and they don't care about Indiana Jones, I have a hard time seeing them like really wanting to, like, are you forcing kids to go see this movie? Like, I just don't.
It wouldn't be the first time, but look,
I don't know. I don't think it's going to do that.
What I think the most.
Go ahead.
I think the thing that's going to happen, the most high probability of what's happening is it's going to have a big opening,
and then drop.
That opening weekend is going to be big. It might not be as big as Smash Brothers. But after that, it's going to disappear. It's going to just drop off the face of the earth. It's going to have a great first week, and then that's it.
I'm telling you. For one, I think it was a big mistake to premiere this movie at Cannes. I think it was a big mistake.
Oh, so it was
but
a huge mistake.
But like, I was even talking to my dad. He loves Indiana Jones, and he's like, I was like, hey, did you see the people at Cannes and what they were saying? He's like, I don't care. I think most people don't care what people at a French film festival have to say about Indiana Jones. I really don't think. So look at Elemental didn't do well at Cannes, and now its score's starting to go up. It was like in the 50s, now it's up in the 70s. I think you're going to see similar thing with Indiana Jones. I think this is going to be much bigger than what people expect. I think this is going to be like Top Gun Maverick, to the sense of nobody expected it to do as well as it did. Like, I think people are expecting this movie I'm not saying it's going to make $1.5 billion, but I think there's a lot of people like $500 million, $600 million is probably what it's going to make. I think this is one that could be like 800 million, especially with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull making almost $800 million. I think this could be an $800 million, $900 million movie. I don't,
Can't.
the second weekend's going to determine if it hits $1 billion, but I think this is going to be a big movie. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be the #1 movie of the year.
See, and I get what you're saying. I think you're right. I think the it'd be the 40s and 50s and 60s audience. I think they're going to go out big for this movie. Like, I do agree with you on that. But also, I think it's not going to be as big as. See, I don't see it being as big because we've seen movies that appeal to that audience have had a reduction in box office since the pandemic in general. Like, this is a very, very different movie, but look at something like Book Club, which 5 years ago did exceedingly well enough that it got a fucking sequel, and that sequel was a horrendous bomb at the box office. I think it may have only turned a minor profit because it was cheap to produce. So
I don't know.
I think, and again, hold on, I'm saying very different movie. I admit that.
Yeah.
Demographic, but then also I look at the younger people. Like, I look at people my age, the people that I talk to, the people that I speak to, which make up now a bigger proportion of the box office than I think people give credit for. And a lot of people who are my age, if they're not really film fans, a lot of them don't know who Indiana Jones is. They know it's Han Solo on screen, but they don't really know the character. They don't care. And unfortunately, a lot of people, my age, know Rotten Tomatoes and care enough to read and see what the number is, but they don't know what it actually means. And that's what I mean when I say I think cons has hurt them, because they've seen a month in advance Indiana Jones has a 50 and they go in their head, oh man, I don't fucking care anymore. I barely wanted to see it anyways. Now it's not very good, whatever. And I think that's going to have a bigger impact than people give it credit for.
I'm telling you, this is like the only movie, as far as the trailer goes, that is literally with every single movie I go see. Like, I go to theater, it shows like 3 trailers. One of them is Indiana Jones, and every single time there's a reaction when it pops up.
I think that's just because you're in the Midwest, because I haven't seen it in front of some movies. I saw Transformers yesterday, and I don't think they played it in front of it.
It's plain.
And I live in Orlando.
They're marketing this. Like, they're actually, unlike Elemental, they're marketing this movie too. And I do think it's. I don't know if it's going to hit $1 billion. I want to know what the audience thinks, because I think audience reaction and second weekend is going to determine, is it going to hit $1 billion? If it does really good overseas, it will definitely hit $1 billion, I think.
Sure. Right.
That's what I think. But I'm telling you, I think this is going to be bigger than what most people expect. I'm thinking, I think about 850. That's kind of where I'm putting it. People did not like Crystal Skull, made almost $800 million. And that was, what, 15 years ago or whatever?
That's coming off of Last Crusade,
Yeah. That movie had a bit of a Phantom Menace effect, where I feel like people didn't hate it as instinctively the moment they walked out. It was sort of over time. You sort of start to go, I don't know, man. Like, and again, I also feel like it's people who have an attachment to indie because that movie was such a different film, I think, are the ones that really, really hate it. Because remember, look at the critic scores for that movie. Critics didn't hate it. They said it's worse than the others, but it got a positive critic score. And like someone like myself, and this is just my opinion, like, is it a worse made film than the others? Yes, it is. It's not as well made. That's just the truth. But as somebody who didn't grow up with indie and saw basically all 4 films back to back to back, I like the 4th one about as much as I like the 2nd one. I think they're both a huge shift in tone that doesn't work for those films. And other than that, there's stuff. Honestly, I may even hate the 2nd one more, because at least the 4th one doesn't have fucking Willie Scott, who can't act, and poor Kiki Kwan fucking okie dokie Dr. Jones. Like, god damn, that is like,
I don't know. I mean, look, people still, around my age, they are not I'm like 30, but like people my brother's age, they go, oh, he's from Indiana Jones. Like, people have seen. I think it's gonna do quite well. And I just kind of give you guys an idea. Indiana Crystal Skull 55% drop second weekend, and after that, it's like 35 or actually 27 to 40 some percent drops. Like, people are going to see it. I think it's the final one. I think a lot of people are going to go see it for that. And it's gone up on Rotten Tomatoes. It's now 54%, not 50 anymore. But
that's so good.
I think it's probably going to end up being around 60.
It's not going to get much better. But
I don't think it's going to be 80.
We could spend all night talking about this. I do want to move the show on. We also have our last panelists here to join us, but I'm going to bring them in at the start of the next story. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Before we get to Marvel, very so briefly, because I don't think we can spend 40 minutes talking about this, we're going to jump over to DC and discuss some of the news that came out this week with them. DC Films has found themselves in the news this week for multiple different projects, so let's talk about them all at once. First off, Deadline reported this week that James Gunn and Peter Safran will be doing test screenings for Superman Legacy beginning on June 19th. Sorry, I read that backwards. Screen testing for the role is what I meant. Reportedly, the first round of testing will include Superman hopefuls Nicholas Hoult, David Cornsweet, and Tom Brittney, and the lowest choices testing will include Emma Mackey, Rachel Brosnahan, and Phoebe Dynevor. It's worth noting that this is not necessarily all who will be testing on the day. There could be more. This is just who reporter Justin Kroll was able to confirm. It's also worth noting that this won't be the only test being done, so more names could show up at a later date to test. THR added information in their write-up of the report later, adding that DC wants the actors cast in time for a Comic-Con announcement. Following Superman and Lois screen testing casting, the movie will begin looking at casting supporting roles, including Lex Luthor, Jimmy Olsen, and members of the superhero team The Authority, who have already been announced to have their own solo film in this new DCU and will apparently be set up in Gunn's Superman film. THR reported this week that the Flash director Andy Muschietti is apparently DC's top choice to direct Batman, the Brave and the Bold. Producer Peter Safran, who worked with him directly on The Flash, and director James Gunn are reportedly most happy with the way Muschietti handled both Batmen in the film, Affleck and Keaton, with the two also receiving a lot of praise from those who have already seen the film. And because of this, he is the top choice to lead the way for their Batman franchise, as they want a director who offers a different skill set from fellow director Matt Reeves' take on Batman. Speaking of Reeves' take on Batman, a rumor this week was launched by John Roca on his podcast, The Hot Mic, that Reeves has begun looking at casting for the Batman Part 2, which is set to begin shooting in early 2024, barring any delays due to strikes. The rumor claims that casting is underway for the character of Harvey Dent, the new DA of Gotham City. The casting is already down to two choices, Josh Hartnett and Joel Edgerton. Roca also mentioned that the role would be just for Dent in this film and that any mention or direct setup of Two-Face is just set up for a sequel, and that's if it's even included in the film. All right, so of course joining us down there, we have the Tato, Jake Reese, hopping in. I'm going to go to you first. I'll let you pick which one of the three we start with, the Superman casting, the Two-Face casting, or Muschietti. Which one do you want to talk about first?
I'll start with Soups. The Lois's
bring up the faces as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. All right, yeah. So the Lois's all I'm not familiar with them at all, but Lois Lane's like one of those parts that I feel isn't super defined unless you're really balls deep in Superman comics and stuff like that. Like she's been pretty versatile and stuff like that in previous films. So good, best of luck to whoever ends up with that. And I'm not, other than Nick Holt, I'm not familiar with these other cats. But I just don't know if, I said it before on one of the other shows, but I don't think I buy Nick Holt as Superman. It's just too much of the nerdy kind of, like Beast is an excellent character for him to play the way I see it. But I just don't know about Superman. That said, I didn't like Will Poulter casting as Adam Warlock either, and he at least very much got to look the part. So if Nick Holt beefs up, maybe he will like a lot of it's the look for me with Nick Holt. So maybe he can beef up and he'll maybe he will look like Superman to me at that point.
Yeah, and it seems like the pictures that are listed here, it seems like these are the front runners at this point. They're the first people that are being brought in for test screening, or screen testing. Fuck, I keep getting that backwards. They're also some of the names that were reported a few weeks ago when reporting first came out about the cast. So it does seem like these are sort of the consistent front runners. For anyone at home who doesn't know any of these, obviously Nick Holt's the most known of the names on the screen. He was in Mad Max Fury Road, the X-Men films recently. He was in Renfield. David Cornsweet and Tom Brittney are both mostly British television actors. Corn Sweat had the, I guess, technically co-starring role in the Ty West film Pearl as the projectionist. Tom Brittney's best-known role was he played one of the members of the ship in the Tom Hanks film Greyhound. With the Lois Lane actresses, Emma Mackey is one of the stars of the show Sex Education. She was also in Murder on the Nile last year. Rachel Brosnahan is best known for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and Phoebe Dynevor is best known for Bridgerton, and she's also in an upcoming film. Say it again for me, Matt. What's the movie called?
Fair Play.
Fair Play, which premiered earlier this year at Sundance and is Netflix, right? Picked it up?
Yeah, Netflix picked it up.
Yeah,
for November.
And it was one of the more
release.
talked about films at the festival.
Yep.
So with that said, Barbara, I'll move up to you next. What do you know? Or what do you prefer out of these choices, or is there somebody else out there that you're sort of thinking maybe would fit better?
I'm not sure because, like Tato, I'm really not familiar with any of these people besides Nicholas Hoult, and my initial thought is really Superman. So, I mean, but it could work. I've been surprised at casting choices before, so it could work.
And I was going to say, with Gunn, people will forget with Gunn, this is the same guy who in the MCU casted. Obviously, Jake brought up Adam Warlock, which a lot of people were questioning because of Will Poulter's performances beforehand. Chris Pratt as Star-Lord, a lot of people really didn't buy into when he was cast. I mean, who else? Batista going to acting and like making his real day. Like, obviously, he had acted before on smaller things, but his first known role being in this big a project. So he takes chances on casting, certainly.
Yeah, and for the most part, they've generally landed and done really well. So, whoever is chosen, I'm sure with James Gunn's direction will do pretty well. So, yeah, like I don't really have a choice in my mind. Like, hey, this is who I'd love to see play Superman next or Lois Lane next. I've been generally pleased with James Gunn's work in movies, so I'm sure whoever he chooses, he'll do the best he can with them and put out a quality movie.
Matt?
So I, for Superman, would want somebody who's more of an unknown. Just my opinion. I want to see somebody kind of grow into the role. I like Nicholas Hoult. I think Nicholas Hoult would be better as Lex Luthor, in my opinion. But I mean, they're doing this, screen testing stuff. So if he ends up being the best choice, then, I'm gonna trust them. I mean, James Gunn does a really good job when it comes to casting, roles and whatnot. I don't really want Dollar Tree Jai Courtney. Don't really want that at all. And but if we're gonna choose any of the three on here, I guess Dollar Tree Henry Cavill is probably my choice. He has the look of Superman. He's an unknown, and it's, like I said, that's what I want to go for. But you did forget one picture, which I guess it's lined up perfectly. I'm also in the running to play Superman. I just got to beef up a little bit because I'm like the size of a willow tree. I'm the size of a willow tree. Lois Lane, it's Phoebe Dynevor. That's my choice. When everybody gets an opportunity to see Fair Play, you'll understand why she's going to be nominated for the Oscar at the very least. I can guarantee that she might even win it flat out. I think Rachel Brosnahan would be a good choice as well. Emma Mackey could be good. She's kind of third out of these three. But yeah, it's Phoebe Dynevor by far for me. That's who I want. Dollar Tree Henry Cavill, because I'm not going to try to remember their name until they're cast as Superman.
All right. Noah, what are your thoughts on Matt's analysis of our Dollar Tree cast here?
Mine is a little less analytical and a little more based on looks. And funny enough, they're the same as Matt's. Just looking at those three people and having seen none of them save for Nicholas Hoult in anything, I was going for Superman, the middle picture. Was it Corn Sweat?
Yeah, David Corn Sweat.
Yeah. And then same as Matt, the girl on the right, Phoebe Dynevor. Was that his name? Phoebe Dynevor?
Dynevor, yeah. Dynevor, I've heard both, but yeah.
from an aesthetic point, I feel like they have like a great look for those characters. For Lois Lane, I couldn't tell you why I think that. She just spoke out to me and she caught my attention immediately. So I'm excited to see her fair play since apparently she's amazing in that movie. So I would if I had more time, Chris. Jesus Christ.
This is a movie show, Chris. We talk about
Yeah.
movies. TV
We don't-
shows
what
are
is
so
TV?
long.
I don't
What is
even watch
TV?
movies, dude. What?
You're telling me that I have to watch I don't know what fucking shows the two Brits are on, the two guys are on, but you're telling me I have to go watch 3 different TV shows to understand these women? No, put them in more movies. That's the answer. Because it's quicker. That said, Noah, I'll start with you. Where do you want to go next? Batman director or Batman casting?
Let's go Batman director.
All right, so
obviously,
I forgot that was a bigger picture. So none of us have seen The Flash yet. I'm assuming, right? No one here has seen The Flash? Okay, so
No.
none of us have seen The Flash yet, so we can't judge Muschietti on that. But mostly what exists before is his horror work. Now, this is a route that DC's gone down before. Obviously, they hired Muschietti off the back of his horror work. They've hired James Wan off the back of mostly horror work. They hired David Sandberg off the back of mostly horror work. So it's worked before for them. What are your thoughts on Muschietti potentially being the choice for Batman?
I'll take anything. I'll give anything a fair chance. Really, I'm very, 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 very worried for this Flash movie. Well, not worried. I just think it's going to be shit. And apparently the reports that people are saying he directed the Batman part of it doesn't make me feel any better. Batman is one of my 2 favorite superheroes. So we have great Batman movies already. So if another one comes out and it's shit, that's fine with me. We have great ones already.
That's true at this point. This franchise has so many like top entries that it's like, all right. Yeah. I'll go up to Jacob next. What are your thoughts on Muschietti?
Yeah, so he's got a very small filmography. Like besides The Flash, it's 3 horror movies. 2 of those being It and It Chapter 2, which I think are pretty good movies. I think the first one is one of the best horror movies of the 2010s, and I think Chapter 2, I think it just suffered from being too long, but I think it was directed really well. So I think it also depends on what the tone of this movie is going to be, which obviously we don't know at this point what James Gunn's DC universe is going to look like, because we never know what a James Gunn movie is going to look like before we actually see it. So I'm going into it with an open mind. Like Noah said, if it's not good, then we've got good Batman movies to go back to, and if it's good, then we've got another one to add to it. So if he ends up directing it, then cool. I mean, he's got good work so far. I haven't seen The Flash. Heard decent things about it. It's just a wait and see sort of thing.
Matt, it seemed like you sort of share the same sentiments.
No. What is going on in Indiana? Somebody got arrested for grabbing butts. Why are we going around grabbing butts? First, we have a guy getting arrested for shooting a mouse with a gun,
Guys,
and now we have a guy grabbing
frisk
butts.
policies to Indiana. What are we doing here?
We're starting to become Florida. Instead of Florida man, it's going to be
you will
Indiana
never be Florida.
You will never be Florida.
You'll never be Florida.
True.
Bro,
I did see a
no
video
joke.
of a guy putting an alligator in a trash can.
I watched a security guard the other night at 12:30 in the morning ask me as I was walking to my car what the random noise from a random animal was over by the lake out the back of my job, and then proceed to walk towards it. You will never be Florida, man.
Yeah, I'll say he did have that one girl jump in the guy's car or whatever at like McDonald's, whatever night that was. But
in front of me,
yeah. We're talking Batman director.
Constitution at a McDonald's drive-through, baby. That's
That look, I gotta go to McDonald's in Florida more often, man. Is it Orange Boulevard or is it Orange Blossom
OBT
Boulevard or whatever?
Orange Blossom.
No, it wasn't on the OBT actually. I can tell you
OBT.
exactly where it was though next time you come down.
Okay, I'm gonna go in December. So a Christmas gift for
you know
me.
it's bad
Um,
it's bad that after all the OBT jokes I've made on the show, the
yeah,
guy from Florida immediately picks up where you're going with this.
yeah. And,
That's how you
dude,
know it's got a reputation.
guy put a alligator in his trash can in Florida. Like what?
Where
Why?
else are you gonna put it? You know?
I guess true. You could throw it back in the lake or something. But no.
Right.
Anyway, Muschietti. I'm not surprised that he might be directing the new Batman movie. That's not surprising at all. Um, Feels like he, just judging by the reactions and the trailers and stuff we've seen, it feels like he has a good grasp as far as like how to handle Batman. Um, so, and then with it being Batman and Robin, I think that could be pretty cool too. I think he could have some fun with it. I liked what he did with the It movies and some of his previous stuff as well. I think he's a talented director. And, like Kevin Feige said when asked about why they chose James Gunn, hey, if you're a good storyteller, you're a good storyteller. Doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's not like he's a new director that's jumping from a small budget movie, say like Chronicle, to a big blockbuster superhero movie like, say, Fan Four Stick. He has experience directing, so you know, I he's a good storyteller. I think it can work. Feels like he understands Batman. Um, I really hope they choose my choice for Batman. Alan Richson, I believe it's the name. He was
Fuck
just in
yeah.
Fast
Fast
X.
X.
That's my
Yeah.
choice.
I've been on that dude's dick since Blue Mountain State.
Pause.
I would not say those words in that order. Jake, down to
Pause.
you. Muschietti on Batman.
Muschietti on Batman. Sounds good to me. I'm not a horror cat, so I'm not familiar with the dude's work. But early, like what I've heard about the Flash, mostly has been a lot of love. So, if he did nail those Batman scenes, which I kind of think is the key to that movie, then props to him, and yeah, give him the Batman.
Yeah, for what it's worth, to me at least, the Batman stuff has been, with the exception of those fucking like very shoddily done callback lines, the Batman stuff in the trailer from both of them seems like it's been the best. This movie's the first time Ben Affleck's spoken positively about Batman in about 4 years, which says something, I guess. Considering at one point he wanted to leave Batman behind with his alcoholism. Like, yeah, it seems like the Batman part of this is at least secure. The last part, then we'll throw in the Dent story. Now, again, this part is rumor, but it's rumor that comes from a source that real journalists trust enough to report on. Not John Roca, I should say. John Roca is the one that said it and reported it, but Jeff Snyder's also a part of that podcast. He's the one that people trust. If it's being said on his show that he's a part of, that it means there's probably some legitimacy to it. So Josh Hartnett, who of course has had a bit of a smaller comeback in the last couple of years, he's worked with Guy Ritchie a couple of times. He was on the show Penny Dreadful, I believe. Is that the one, right? Anyone confirm?
It might be.
Sure.
I mean,
but we don't watch television. We established that.
Yeah.
So Josh Hartnett's had a bit of a comeback.
Star show?
Joel Edgerton, of course, known for his work in multiple things. Most recently, he was in Obi-Wan, of course, The Gift a couple of years ago, which was excellent. He's had a lot of smaller roles and things over the years. So with these being the two potential choices for Harvey Dent, we'll just quickly go through it. Do any of you have a preference one over the other? I'll start with Jacob.
I mean, I think Joel Edgerton is just a better actor overall. So I mean, just based off acting, I'll go with him. And if there's no Two-Face element to it, then I think I'm definitely going with just the better actor in my opinion.
Jake.
Yeah, I'll agree with Barbara on Joel being the better actor, period. But Josh Hartnett, he's a Minnesota brother. I like him quite a bit. I do think he could be great in this role too.
Matt?
He was in Die Hard, and that automatically means that Josh Hartnett is not my choice because he had to be in that thing. But hey, I guess you have to take the struggle roles once in a while. It was Penny Dreadful that he was in, and it is not Stars, it's Showtime. Now I know. just going off of the first Batman movie that came out, I feel like is it say his name again, please?
Joel
Edgerton.
Yeah, Joel Edgerton. There we go. Yeah, I feel like he would probably be the best choice for the world that is being set. I think Josh Hartnett is a good actor. I think he could put in a good performance. I'd probably go Joel Edgerton though. I feel like he would fit more for that darker Robert Pattinson Batman world that we have.
And no,
This might be a sweep because I'm also going Joel Edgerton. Personally, that I want because I saw the movie that he was in that you mentioned, The Gift, and I thought he was really creepy in that movie in a good way because you're like, I don't know if like I'm seeing things, if I'm going crazy, or if like he's like an actual creeping weirdo. So I think Joel Edgerton can pull it off. However, I think that casting is going to go the other way, just because of how they've been casting the Batman roles already. In terms of the Riddler and Joker, Barry Keoghan, however you say it,
Yeah.
he just has that younger look, and so I feel like that's what they're going for, especially in DC. Like we just talked about the actresses and actors for the new Superman movie. Everyone looks young, and I think that's maybe the route that we're going for. So, like, I want Joel Edgerton to be cast as that, but I think it's going to be the other guy whose name I can't remember.
Josh Hartnett.
I will throw Joel Edgerton some love in Warrior, where he plays a teacher by day, MMA fighter by night. So that's kind of got some Two-Face qualities to it.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's. I like that. If it's true, I like that they're going to go at the minimum a whole movie before even going near the Two-Face thing, and that's if they even go near it. Maybe he is just because this is supposedly just a trilogy and nothing more. Maybe he is just Harvey Dent in these films, and that's it. I appreciate that because one of my least favorite parts of The Dark Knight is the Harvey Dent element of it. I think Aaron Eckhart gives a great performance, but it's just rushed. It is way too rushed in that film. To basically throw in another villain just for the third act, especially when he's so well set up. So I like that they're going to take more time with it. I actually like both these choices because, like, as I said, Hartnett's been in a couple of Guy Ritchie's films recently, and I've seen those, and I think he's done well in those movies. I think it depends on how they want to approach the character. I think that if you want this Two-Face to be that darker, grittier sort of feel, I think Joel Edgerton certainly works for that. If you want the character to sort of feel like a slightly less corrupt version of the DA we got in the last film played by Peter Sarsgaard, I think Edgerton brings that. But also, part of me wonders if maybe Hartnett's being looked at because in the film, they set up that the new mayor, who's like this young, vibrant, she's sort of the opposite of everything that's going on in Gotham. And her whole thing is like, I want to renew the city. I want to make things better. I want to actually make change. And I feel like Hartnett plays more into that style. If like the DA that she brings in is somebody who has a similar vibe to her. And then, you know, obviously, I think Edgerton, if they do go the Two-Face route, Edgerton on paper makes much more sense as a Two-Face. But maybe that's what if Hartnett takes the character, maybe that's what makes the fall more tragic. And then it's just, can he pull it off at that point?
Yeah, you know who, and I don't think it's been mentioned yet. But to be fair, this is the first time I'm actually hearing about Harvey Dent potentially being in this series. You know who I think would actually be a good Harvey Dent? It would probably piss some people off, but who cares? Idris Elba. I think Idris Elba in that world could really pull off. I feel like he could really pull that role off. It would piss off like the small minority that has a loud voice, but I think some of those people that normally aren't for the, get like a different person.
We've already had a black Two-Face, so it's cool.
Yeah, but like we've had those people are like, oh, you're changing the color of someone's skin.
Black Two-Face.
The people that normally get upset for changing like a character's skin color, I think with Idris Elba, some of those people be like, okay, yeah, that's actually good. We're good with this. we're okay with that. Just like with Sam Jackson and as Nick Fury, it's like, okay, yeah, no, we're good with that. It's Sam Jackson. You know, you have people go, it's Idris Elba. You know, like that'd be great. But yeah, I think Idris Elba. I think he would be a really good choice too. And it wouldn't surprise me if James Gunn wouldn't be in charge of this. It wouldn't surprise me though if like it was suggested to Matt Reeves, like, hey, here's this guy, maybe you should cast him. But then it could have all that confusion of, well, he's already in a DC property. Why is he in another one? And stuff like that. But I think he'd be a great choice.
Fair enough. All right, guys. Well, we're at just over the hour mark now, so let's go ahead and jump into the reason why you probably clicked on this video. And if you're watching it after it's been uploaded, you're speeding through the time codes to get to the part where it starts. We're going to go ahead and jump into Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse. And at this point, I am going to issue an official spoiler warning for the movie. If you have not seen the film, from this point on, spoilers are going to be in full effect until this scrolling banner across the screen is taken down. With that said, we'll go ahead and jump into it. Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse swung into theaters last week to a resounding success. Phil Lord and Chris Miller returned to write and produce the project, bringing in a new creative team to help see the production through, including new co-writer Dave Callahan, best known for writing Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and 3 new directors in Joaquim Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson, pictured on the top of this image, who are respectively best known for their work on Avatar: The Last Airbender, Soul, and being the production designer on Into the Spider-Verse. Shameik Moore returns as Miles Morales, Earth 1610's second Spider-Man, who's feeling the lonely aftermath of learning about a Spider-Verse which he can't reach. But as emotional tensions reach a high with his family, Gwen Stacy returns and Miles finds himself swept away across the Spider-Verse, where he learns things aren't what they seemed and that the ones he loves are in grave danger due to the rise of his supervillain, the Spot, voiced by Jason Schwartzman. Alongside Moore and Schwartzman, the main cast of the previous films return, including Haley Steinfeld as Gwen Stacy, alongside Brian Tyree Henry, Luna Lauren Velez, Jake Johnson, and even Mahershala Ali as a multiversal variant of Uncle Aaron Morales. Oscar Isaac and Greta Lee also return in expanded roles after being set up in the previous film's post-credit scene. Literally hundreds of spider variants from all areas of the universe are introduced, but the main ones focused on include Spider-Woman, voiced by Issa Rae, Spider-Man India, voiced by Karan Soni, and Spider-Punk, voiced by Daniel Kaluuya, and many, many more characters cameoing. Other actors in the film include Shea Wiggum, Yorma Taccone, Andy Samberg, Adam Sandler, and Jarrell Jerome. With a reveal that shocked audiences and a cliffhanger that's pissed a lot of them off, the Spider Society Spider People pick sides and prepare for the final installment in what is being hailed already as one of the best film trilogies, potentially, of all time. And I want to fact check myself there. Autocorrect took its place on here because I spelled Amanda Stenberg's name wrong. It autocorrected to Adam Sandler. Shout out
Yeah,
to
it's like Adam Sandler's in this movie.
Not in this movie.
I was like, look, I get it. Andy Samberg's in the movie, and he,
Yeah, no, I meant Amanda
there's
Stenberg,
similarities
but I spelt it wrong and autocorrected its thing, and then I blindly read it. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this movie. We'll go ahead and start with Noah because I want to. I'll give you a chance as well to shout it out. Noah has a podcast that he does when he has the opportunity to do so because schedules are tough. And we did a whole episode on the first film, so I know firsthand how big a fan you are of this movie. What were your thoughts on the second film? We'll start just with a brief intro before we dive in.
The first Spider-Man movie, Into the Spider-Verse, is my favorite Spider-Man movie. I'm going to say out of this movie, before this movie came out, before I saw it, it was my favorite Spider-Man movie. It was one of my favorite movies of all time. I loved that movie. I went into this movie terrified to watch it because of all the media, everything about it. I was like, what if it's horrible and it's really bad? And that was not the case when I walked out of that theater. However, I think I need to go see it before I officially rank it. And before all my thoughts finish. I love the movie. I think I gave it a 5 stars on Letterboxd. I don't know if I like it more than Into the Spider-Verse.
Fair enough. Jake, go to your intro.
Yeah, I'll very much echo Noah's sentiment in that Into the Spider-Verse was my favorite Spider-Man film. I love one of my favorite films, period. It's one of the things that made Spider-Man my favorite character in comics in 2018 and stuff like that. I did not have the trepidation that he had, though. I had faith that they would nail it. I believed in this team. I was filled with hope, and it executed on every plane. I also need a rewatch to fully comprehend it, but I do have it at number 1 right now.
Yeah, so I'll go. I'm in the same ballpark as you guys. I love this movie. I wanted to make sure because there's so much in this movie to catch. I wanted to make sure that like I had everything sort of laid out. So I've seen it 3 times because I had a lot of time on my hands this week. So I've seen it 3 times already. I think this movie is excellent. I think this is a masterclass. First off, in animation. Like, this is how you use the medium to its fullest extent. And I totally get, originally before Jake joined us, we had Alejandro Hernandez on the show, and I wanted to briefly shout him out because unfortunately couldn't be here, fell under the weather. But I know that his major complaint with the first film, and I believe he had a similar, but maybe to not as great an effect issue with the second film with it, is the animation moves at such a speed that it can affect you if it's something you're not used to, or if it's something you can't get into. If you suffer any type of motion sickness, it may affect you in that way. But he gave tons of praise to the actual story and the characters and all that of the movie. It was just sometimes it's hard to watch. Another regular panelist, Austin Howell, famously has said that he never finished the first film because he couldn't get through it with the way that it's animated. So I totally understand if somebody can't get into this, but that said, I love the animation. I love the fact that they use every style under the sun and they integrate them so well. And I mean, it is truly a masterclass of that. I think there's a big discussion between people about like voice acting versus acting and like the art of voice acting being lost because they're just bringing celebrities and actors in to do these voice roles. This to me is an example of when bringing actors in actually does work because these people aren't just voice actors doing funny voices and to be fair, giving good performances. That's not to take away from the classic voice actors out there, but these are real heavy dramatic actors. A lot of these people have been in like Oscar caliber films. When you look at Haley Steinfeld and Brian Tyree Henry, Mahershala Ali, like these people have been in top films, and they bring that to this movie. They bring the seriousness, they bring the legitimacy of it. They really sell these different angles. And finally, this movie, unlike Far or No Way Home, which I did enjoy and I liked a lot for what it is, that movie is just a cameo fest. That movie is built solely off the back of the fact that we're bringing in characters you recognize, and holy fuck, isn't this cool that they're here? This movie does that to a whole nother level because there's characters in here that exist in comics that if you won't even know are real. Like, you'll be questioning if some of this is real, and most of it is. As far as I'm aware, the only Spider-Man that is 100% fictional is the Metro Boomin cameo. That's not a real Spider-Man. That's just they put him in the movie because he did the soundtrack.
There's a second one too.
Oh, is there another one? Okay.
Yeah, which I mean, it might be. It could be fake. I could have been like tricked. I have to go see the movie to make sure. But there might have been a cameo from the Popsicle Spider-Man.
Oh.
There might have been, but that might have been fake.
Well, that's real though. The Popsicle Spider-Man exists, though.
But
it wouldn't surprise me if the Popsicle was also in it. What's his canon event?
What's his backstory?
Yeah.
But no, I love this movie. I think it is the best Spider-Man film. I think it's the best film of the year. I'm not gonna sit here and try and act like I'm hiding my score until the end of the movie. I think it's a genuine masterclass in filmmaking. And I'm so happy I loved it because I can say I've said on the show before, Matt, we've talked about it like back and forth. I didn't like the marketing for this movie. I didn't like the fact that the marketing for this movie was just all these different characters and vague lines of dialogue, and it wasn't giving you a sense of what the movie was really going for in terms of its story. And I get why, to an extent, why they made that choice. I still don't like the trailers, but I get why they did it. But I'm just glad that the movie worked out because that was the only concern I had going in. Matt, your thoughts?
So going into this movie, Into the Spider-Verse was my third favorite. It's because Spider-Man 2, it's my number one, means so much to me. Saw it at like the right age. I think it's like a perfect example of how to make a superhero comic book film. Maybe not to the extent of like a Dark Knight or Logan, but just a comic book film. I feel like that is the perfect comic book film. Not the best, but just the way it's made. And then No Way Home, I think there's more meaning. I think the cameos, like they're not just there to be cameos. There's a reason why they're there. It's not just like, hey, look at this, and then that's that. It adds to the story at least. So, and then of course seeing Toby, it means a lot to me, and Doc Ock.
Fair enough.
So it's my second, and then Into the Spider-Verse it's a great film. My third. Wasn't sure if this was going to live up to Into the Spider-Verse. And I think it definitely passes Into the Spider-Verse. Like you said, masterclass when it comes to animation. It really pushes just the boundaries of what animation is and what it can be. I think this is going to be a very inspirational movie for animated filmmakers in general. I think you're going to see tons of elements from this movie in other animated movies as well. I'm sure we'll go into some of the details. The thing that kind of held it back from passing like No Way Home and Spider-Man 2 for me was really, I felt like the first 30-45 minutes, it was really good. I liked it, but it wasn't like hitting me as much as Into the Spider-Verse was, or the second half of the movie. I think the second half of this film is just, it's fantastic. The way they use the cameos is great. Some of the cameos specifically are, it just the way they incorporated some of them was really, really cool as well. So definitely my third favorites. I'm going to go see it a couple more times for sure, but I think they're really setting up for something really, really cool this third one. I'm going to run upstairs real quick. I just got to go check the dogs. So I'll be
No,
right
go
back.
ahead. You're good. Barber, last one. Go ahead.
Yeah. I don't think I've gone into a movie with higher expectations than I did this one, because Into the Spider-Verse was just such a hit, and I love that movie. I've seen that movie probably a dozen times so far. High expectations going into this one, and this movie exceeded them, because I absolutely loved this movie. I loved it so much I went back 2 days later and saw it again. So I have seen this twice, and that first time I came out of it, and I thought, maybe I'm overreacting, because my thought was, did I just watch the greatest animated movie that's ever been made? And I thought about it for like the next hour, just different moments, different scenes, and when I came out of it the second time, I had that same thought. Did I just watch the greatest animated movie that's ever been made? And this is coming from somebody who's like the biggest Lion King fan you'll ever meet. I love that movie as well. And so, I went into this high expectations, and they met. I think they delivered on every aspect. The animation, just blending those different styles, I think they nailed it. I think the script, I think just the different dialogues that we get, the moments between Gwen, her dad, between Miles and his parents, and then Miles and all the different spider people. I think that's one aspect that I don't think is getting talked about as much as just like the animation, which rightfully so. The animation is stunning, but the script I think is top notch as well. And I don't know why people are getting upset that there's a cliffhanger when this was clearly marketed as a part 1 of 2.
Dude, it is all 3 viewings I've seen of this movie, like, people audibly upset that it ends where it does.
It's like they said it was going to be a cliffhanger. They said it. They're like, it's like Empire Strikes Back. It's going to be a cliffhanger. And I'm like,
who those interviews aside from us? Come on now.
Well, True.
Like,
That is
the
very
only
true.
way that you were ever going to get a cliffhanger like this across to the general audience was if you just stuck at the end of a trailer a big warning sign that says ends in cliffhanger.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how they market the third one. I'm so curious.
Yeah, a little bit.
So
No
we'll start
cliffhanger
with
ending.
we'll start with as we go around, because obviously in a movie like this, the biggest aspect of it is the characters, right? And obviously, as Jacob said, I think the screenplay, even over the first one, is much improved here. The first one, they're co-write, and I think a lot of it is the co-writer. Their first one, their co-writer, I forget the gentleman's name, but I believe he like co-wrote like one of the Jump Street films with them, or like that was his writing experience. Whereas this time they brought in David Callahan, who he's written multiple different films, but the one he's best known for was Shang-Chi with Marvel, which I think this is a better script than that with Lord Miller helping, but also a script that's very family-centric, a script that is very character-driven. I think all the characters in that movie are pretty well fleshed out, the ones that matter at least. And so I think that's a big upgrade here. So I'll go around. I'll start back with you, Jacob, and we'll work our way around again. Of all the characters, what's the one or two? Because obviously you could sit here and list probably multiple, but what's the one or two that sort of stand out the most to you? And I figure that way we'll cover most of them.
I think for me it's Gwen and Miles, and that might seem like a safe answer, but I think Gwen really had more to do
right
in this movie, and I like to get diving into more of her story and more of her relationship with her dad, and then just seeing Miles more confident in his spider manning, and that the relationship that he has with his parents, and obviously I think that's like authentic. I think it's a real good representation of like how parents and kids are. Obviously we're not superheroes, but
Yeah.
they don't actually exist.
Speak for yourself.
But we see that like with
I am a
Gwen and his
superhero.
dad, like well I believe that, but we see Gwen and his dad and her dad, and like
I'm a
he
suit
has
right
a
here.
job,
I am
he
a
has a
superhero.
job to do, and Miles' parents really care about his school, and like
right.
but yeah, so they're probably the two that that stick out, because I mean the movie is about them, but Oscar Isaac, I think he was incredible as well. He'd probably be third if I'm not picking Miles or Gwen. Like him and Daniel Kaluuya's Spider-Punk. Spider-Punk was so much fun.
Matt, what are the one or two characters that stand out the most?
I feel like Miguel, 2099. I feel like he definitely sticks out. And like I really enjoy characters like his that are aimed to be a villain of the movie, because clearly because he puts the whole thing of, hey, we have to go through these things where we lose our uncles or we lose people that really matter to us. So Miles doesn't want to lose his dad, and he's like, we gotta go, you have to do this. And you could tell, if he felt like things would be okay if his dad would be alive, he would. But just there's a complexity where it's not just like, I'm gonna be bad to be bad. He's making a choice where it makes him seem like the bad guy, but he thinks it's ultimately for what's best. And I really do enjoy characters like that. So he definitely sticks out. The things with his family, and even he tries to change things as well, and it screws things up there. I think that stands out, or his character stands out for sure. I think it's a really well written character, and I think Oscar Isaac does a really good job with that. The other, it's tough because I mean you have a lot of them. I think probably Miles would be the other one. I think he really has more to do in this film. I think he's a better character in this film too than he was in the previous film. You see all the internal struggles. I really enjoyed his character in this one more than I did in the first one. But there's so many you could choose. Like there's literally hundreds of Spider-Man. Yeah, like I mean, and like I'll throw Spot in there too. I think Spot, at first I was like, okay, this is just kind of a dumb villain, but once you get to the end, this is a dude. that is, he's not just some like silly villain, like the villain of the week. Like he's a real threat, and I think we're gonna see every Spider-Man fight him, and I think it's gonna be really, really cool, like with some of the animation and the live action elements brought in too.
Real quick, because you brought Spot up. I heard someone say that he is like a funny villain until he's not. I think that's a good
Yeah.
way of putting it. Like, yeah, his powers and like his kind of personality as he was portrayed seemed kind of like funny,
Mhm.
but you realize very quickly how powerful and how devastating he can actually become. So I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Really
No,
enjoyed
I'll
him.
go to you. What character kind of stands out the most to you?
Someone already mentioned her, but Gwen, I feel like you could make a very strong debate that this was her movie, even though
Mhm.
it could be Miles as well. It opens with her. I think her world is some of the most visually stunning thing I've seen in an animated movie. I know I probably just stole one of your lines, Tato, but oh my God, I loved everything when she was on screen. I loved the interactions with her dad. I loved the interactions with Miles' parents. I thought that was great. I think she personally stole this movie for me. She was just fantastic. But one of my other favorite characters, even though I don't like his Spider-Man design, I really like Spider-Punk as a character. And I want to see more of him, especially Daniel Kaluuya playing him.
Jake.
Yeah, Hobie fucking Brown, dude. Spider-Punk, Spider-Man, all the way. I fucking loved every moment that dude was on screen, and fucking I'll throw out the animation tweet. The rules for Hobie: body animated off on the threes, offset the vests, guitar on the fours, outline on the twos, and break those rules whenever the fuck they want to for his animation style as far as his frame rate. Fucking A, how the fuck did they pull that off? It is bananas. Paviter Probkar is a dude I like quite a bit. He's a really cool Spider-Man, and it's because he's only been doing it for 3 months and he hasn't had that tragedy, and like we haven't quite got to see that play out because Miles is pretty much in chaos from the moment we meet him. And so we don't get to see him being like he has to jump up, whereas Paviter did not have to do that, so he just gets to have fun being Spider-Man, which we don't in a way that we don't get to see, I should say. I do love Gwen. Her like the blue and pink pastels are just fucking gorgeous. Grub this whole movie in my eyeballs. I love pretty colors. I'm very easy with that, but every frame of this fucking film is just gorgeous. And then Ben Reilly, Andy Samberg playing the Nick Cage role in this flick.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's perfect.
Yeah. Investigating the alley.
There's a wall. That's normal. There. What is that?
Well, what was it? Something that was like perfect pose.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw it. There's like a couple of frames in like the film where he's just going like this, just kind of like checking himself out, and I'm just like dying.
No, I was gonna say I'm on the same wavelength as you because I have made the argument to people. Obviously, overall, Miles is the protagonist of this trilogy, and the first and third movies are very much about his story. I think genuinely Gwen is the protagonist of this film because you're right. It starts with her. It technically does end with her. Because she's the one that's making the action at the end of the movie. Yep. And a lot of people have complained about the fact that people will say this is only half a movie, which obviously you could argue is the two-parter thing. But I would say that it is a 3-act structure, and I've talked to this like with friends and stuff. If you look at through the lens that she is the leading character and not him, she's the one that has an inciting incident. She's the one that goes on even more of an emotional journey than him because she's the one dealing with, well, I'm with this society and I'm committed and I'm informed and I know what the truth is behind all this, but I don't think what they're doing is right. So what is the right thing for me to do? Because what I'm being told is right isn't. And she's the one that goes on that journey. And even then, at the end, she she's the one that really gets the conclusion, because obviously he's stuck in the wrong universe, and she's the one that discovers, which I've seen multiple different people interpret this scene in different ways, but the way that I took it is with the final scene between her and her father, where he says that I guess the way it's worded is he's going to step down from being captain. It makes it seem like he already has, but it's I stepped down the moment you started speaking, because he can't arrest his own daughter. That to me says the canon can be changed, because she had resided to the fact that her father was going to die because he was a police captain, and that's that. And by going back, she has inadvertently changed the canon in just not as a direct way. And so I think that that'll play very much into the next film. But yeah, so I think it absolutely is a full movie. It's just not his story. His story is being told over 2 movies, but her story and her growth is in this film. And I think that directly sets up what they'll do with her character in the next one. And yeah, I thought Daniel Kaluuya is a breath of fresh air in this movie. Like the way the character is, the animation obviously is insane. Like that's a technical achievement in and of itself to pull something like that off. Again, if you have motion sickness with intense things like animation, don't look his character directly in the eyes. It will get you. But it's incredible that they pulled this thing off. I think the writing for the character is excellent. Like the scene where you first meet Miguel and there's that long conversation and just the random cutaways to all his little one-liners or comments that he's throwing in consistently breaks up the tension that's sort of building in like the perfect way. Like
his lines with like the baby spider.
Yeah, what is
I was like, oh my god,
taking a crap on the establishment.
Yes.
That kid's an anarchist. Like,
How are you even cooler under the mask? That was always the scope.
And since we're talking about characters, I'll call out the one genuine negative I have with the movie, and this is like the one thing that stuck with me after seeing it 3 times, is Issa Rae's character in Spider-Woman, because and it's not her fault. I think she puts a good voice performance in. Yeah. I think the character is too one note, because she's either like, in terms of the dialogue they've given her and the actual character you see portrayed on screen, outside of the opening, her entire demeanor is basically just being a lackey to Miguel, which is also the opposite of what they established in the opening, because she's very quick to challenge him and be snarky with him, and even is the one that pushes for Gwen to get accepted. But then by the time she's brought back into the movie, she's basically just Miguel's lackey. Like whatever he says, she doubles down on, even to the point where she is like, in a sense, approving the betrayal of sending her back to her own universe. Yeah. Except they'll throw in these random shots of like clear confliction on her face. And it's like, I get what they're going for, but I don't think the movie does a good enough job of establishing her and Gwen's dynamic to the point where you can't have her speak to her that harshly, but then also make me genuinely feel that you feel bad for her. I just think it comes off as a little too one note. And again, this is a 2-part film. I think based on the way that her final shot in the movie is set up, it's very clear that she's not going to stick with Miguel all the way to the end. At some point, that line is going to break and she's going to switch to the good side, I guess, theoretically. But to me, just the way they portrayed it in this film specifically was a little too one note for me. I don't think it quite worked. But as I said to my brother when we saw the film, if that's the one negative that's sticking with me in a film that has so much going on, I don't think it's actually that big a negative, because it just means you were focused in so many other areas. Like, one of my complaints with the first film is, and inadvertently, I guess it's a complaint that I have about this movie too, but it is more with the first film. They don't do enough to establish this supposed connection that Miles has with those other characters. Because Noir and Spider-Ham, and I think it's Penny Parker is the other one, they're brought in like the last 40 minutes, and all of their screen time is them basically berating him, challenging him, training him, and then telling him he's not good enough. Like, there's no
Yeah.
real positive interactions between any of those characters. So, like, in this movie, when you're in the intro, it's like, okay, I buy him missing Peter, I buy him missing Gwen, but being like, I want to see my friends and like them being a part of the mural, I don't buy it because they were kind of assholes to him the entire time he knew them. Like, outside of the fact that they're all Spider-Men, there's not really much connection shown to those characters. But I think that was something they greatly improved upon, because in something like this, despite the fact that they don't have a lot of screen time together, I can totally see someone like Hobie immediately connecting to somebody like Miles and then going out of his way to come back into the scenario to help save him. You know what I mean? Like, I just think they did a better job with these characters, making them more three-dimensional.
I want to say one last thing before I go to bed, because it's getting late. I'm tired, so I'm going to leave early. I have the same issue with you. I didn't like the Spider-Woman character. And as I was thinking, I think it was just her personality that I just found grating. She was like just really rude and unkind. And I talked to one of my friends about it, and he's like, well, she has a reason to be that way, because she's got a very tough job. Her and Miguel have this really tough job where they have to basically let these people go through traumatic events to save the multiverse. And she has to be hard. She has to be tough. She has to be stern and make sure these things happen. And she has to be hard on Gwen, because if Gwen messes up, it's going to have huge consequences. So while I can still see that, why she is the way that she is, I'm still with you. I still didn't like her as a Spider person, and I didn't really like her character.
And I think to counteract that, because I certainly see your friend's point on that, I would say I think you can pitch that argument to Miguel, because they go out of their way to show Miguel's backstory, his mindset, his demeanor. They even throw in moments of kindness even within the scenes where he's being super harsh, like especially in that dialogue scene in the Spider Cave, I guess. I don't know what to call it, but in the equivalent of Spider-Man's Batcave, like you can see on his face there is, and in the way he's delivering the lines, there is a sense of sympathy for Miles, of like, I know it sucks that you have to go through this, but you still have to go through it. And I think they do a good job of that with him. I guess with her, it's just they don't give us anything about her character outside of the fact that she's married and apparently pregnant for an infinitely long amount of time. Because like, if you do the math, it's 6 months since Spiderverse when the movie starts, and then it's 10 more months between the opening and then when we pick up with Miles, because he says he's been Spider-Man for 1 year and 4 months. So it's a 10-month jump in between the opening of the film and then when he picks up. And babies only last 9 months, and she looked very heavily pregnant. So unless in all this saving the world, she found time to lay down with her husband a second time.
Dude, it's a spider baby.
Hey, time works different.
Hey,
time works different in other dimensions.
Balance, okay?
Work life balance.
Yeah,
Peter hasn't found it yet. He's just bringing the kid to work.
Thank you for having me, Aaron. Good talking with the rest of you guys. You guys have a great night.
Peace
out. Have a good night. So we'll go ahead and jump in. Jacob, I'll go to you. What's another aspect of the film you want to jump into? Go ahead. Pick anything.
It was briefly touched on, but I think the villain, the Spot, is just, I think he's incredible. I think the growth that he goes through as a villain, because it does start off as very cheesy, very funny. Like, oh, is he just going to be like the beginning of the movie villain that gets taken down? And no, it doesn't turn out to be, and he grows more more like just like sinister, and like in the delivery of his lines, and I never thought I would use the word sinister to describe a Jason Schwartzman role, but yeah, here we are. Because just the way he grows and becomes just really good at what he does, unfortunately for the Spider people, I think is incredible, and I think over time he could become one of my just favorite villains. And I think it depends on how he's used in the next one. But I think he could easily become just one of my favorite villains in movies. So
I'll tag that by saying I didn't watch any of the. I only watched the first teaser trailer, so I didn't even know Spot was going to be in the movie. I didn't get it spoiled at all. I was very lucky. So when he showed up, I'm like, "Oh, holy shit, Spot! That's going to be awesome, cool, fun." And then I'm like, "Oh shit, they're actually going there with this guy." And fuck me, that was amazing.
Yeah, no, like in terms of like evolution of a character. I think that you're right in terms of progression of character. It might be one of the best villains any of these Marvel movies have done, because you do see him go very much from that opening villain of the week thing. Like, he's in the beginning of the movie, he's arguably a better version of what Sony tried to do with Rhino, like just this comedic sort of goofy villain that they've stuck in at the start of the film. And no, like the further and further it goes, and the more deranged he becomes. It's like you see him, and again, like I remember when Schwartzman was announced, I was like, that's a weird fucking choice. But it's actually kind of an inspired fucking choice, because like he does deliver exactly what the character needs, including not losing the humor, even the deeper and darker the character gets. Like the humor part of it is still there. Also, shout out to the editors of this film, because if anyone doesn't know, there's a deleted scene connected to the villain, and having read the description of this scene, it's the perfect example of when deleting scenes is the right choice. Because apparently at some point in this film, there was a scene where before he went multiversal, he visited, I think it's called the Bar with No Name, which is like this villain bar from Spider-Man comics. And basically the gist of the scene is he visits it, he gets made fun of for being a shitty villain, he goes home sad. And then they were going to call back to it in like a post-credit scene on the film where he goes back to the universe, and the first thing that he does is go and decimate that bar. A, I don't think a post-credit scene was needed for this movie, and B, I feel like throwing in a random scene with him separated, getting railed on more than he already was, would have just killed the pacing. Because for a movie that's 2 hours and 20 minutes, it doesn't feel it. It's like really well paced. Like they really know how to move the movie at just the right moments. What's something else, Matt? You want to throw something else out there?
Yeah. So we got a story for next week to talk about, unfortunately. We'll talk about that later. Now let's talk about some of the cameos, because it's not a great story that I read, so let's talk fun cameos. I thought the way they used a lot of the cameos in this movie was really good, and also I think it like I said, I think one in particular hints at what I think they're going to do with the third movie, and that's Donald Glover popping in. Seeing Donald Glover as a Prowler, that was like, when I saw that, I think that was like the first time in that movie anyway, I like had an audible gasp, because you just don't expect Donald Glover to pop up in an animated movie, not animated. I thought that was really, really cool. And like I said, I think it hints at what they're going to do, because, they did a lot of crazy things in this movie. How are they top some of this stuff? I think whether it's for a scene where, like they're trying to get to whatever Earth they need to get to, they pop up in the MCU's Earth, and then they go, oh, sorry, my bad, and then they leave. Something like that, kind of like what they did with the Venom thing, which even that I thought was kind of fun. When Spot ends up going into that universe.
Oh, see,
that was fun too. I
hated that scene just because it was like, to me, it felt like it was executed in such a way where it's like, while they were shooting Venom 2, they took that woman at her, stare at a camera, and go, just quip, like just say shit, and we'll fill in the rest afterwards.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was kind of fun, but that
I also don't like those
Donald
movies,
Glover,
so maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, I only seen the first one, but I think that Donald Glover, I think how else are they going to top it by having one or the three, live action Spider-Man we got? That's what
please don't do all three.
I think at least one. I think we're going to get at least one, and it feels like it would be Tom Holland. I think we're going to. I think he still has a movie in his contract, but that was really cool. All the cameos, and then the Lego world they go to,
that was great.
That was great.
Which
it had the
shout out to
humor.
Shout out to the 14-year-old that put that scene together. Where that came from is There was a 14-year-old kid who has a YouTube channel that made a Lego parody of one of the trailers, and Lord and Miller saw it and reached out to him and basically gave him a scene and said, "We'll make it and we'll put it in the movie." And it's like the story is like this kid and his dad helped him make it. It's like he'd come home after school, rush to get his homework done to go work on a big blockbuster movie. Like that's just awesome, man.
Work on the best fucking movie of the year.
That's the shit of dreams right there.
It's so good. I love it.
It's the same humor from the Lego movie as well, which made that great too. But just the fact that Lego Spider-Man is one of the best Spider-Men that Miguel has. I thought that was great.
You're one of our best.
and it's all like the normal sound effects that you would make if you're playing Legos. I thought that was great. Just so many cameos. Just like the way the way they incorporated Andrew Garfield into
Peter
the movie
Park's
was cool.
car is one of the funniest, and apparently that is a thing in the comics, and it's got a different name. They changed its name because somebody pitched the joke of Peter Parked car, and they were like, "That's funnier. Name it that."
Like we had that. It's Spider Cat and Spider Horse in this movie. I just
Peter PTER Rex. Spider.
Whip.
Like
the thwip, the little T-Rex thwip.
The thwip. I thought a lot of the cameos were really well done. Yeah, like the PlayStation Spider-Man, that felt like it was thrown in there to be thrown in there. Yeah, there were some that might have been like, oh, hey, look at this. This is really cool. Look at this. But it was really, I thought it was cool. They handled it well. And some of them were done, some of them were done a little awkwardly, as if it was like, we're trying to shout out to this thing directly. You're right. There was a lot of the video game model kind of being put in there. I thought the shot of when they show the different clips of like the Ben lying on the ground, and there's like one particular shot behind Miguel, I think, where it's like there's two different versions of the Garfield one happening where it's different camera angles, and then the Toby one's in there. That was a little like, okay, we get it. They did this in the films too. I thought the Garfield one was cool though, because they actually had
using the scene. That was a good idea.
Like I thought that was cool how they did that.
As I said to my brother in theaters when they talked about they broke canon technically when they talked about the Captain Stacy death, because they used the Amazing Spider-Man one, because obviously he didn't die in the Raimi films. And I leaned over to my brother and went, "That's not how he fucking died in that movie."
Right. Yeah.
He died fighting the lizard on top of a building. He was not saving anyone from a falling building.
Right. But that was all great. It was all great. And then there was I can't remember it. There was another thing I thought was cool, like Spectacular Spider-Man, the animated show, having that Spider-Man in was kind of cool too. There's a lot of really fun, cool things. And I feel like we're gonna watch this movie more and more and more. We're gonna notice more little cameos and stuff.
There's so much.
Just wait till it comes out on Blu-ray. So many videos on YouTube about just dissecting.
Taryn Killam did the voice of Cowboy Spider-Man with the Spider Horse, who had shotgun webs.
And
of course, they had to bring J.K.
I really
Simmons.
liked it.
I like the touch that J.K. Simmons is just Jameson in every universe.
Yeah, he's a multiversal being. Yeah.
That's your Jameson in every universe, except for the things that came out before JK was ever cast.
I mean,
and then he had the old Spider-Man cartoon. He had that Spider-Man in it too.
Anything you can do. Oh,
he just stands still. I was like, oh no, as they're all running away. But no, it was really fun and really clever how they did a lot of that stuff. And I got to see the movie again and find out if Popsicle Spider-Man is in this movie. His canon event has to be Ben and Jerry melting. Ben and Jerry ice cream melting. That's his canon.
Uncle Ben and Jerry.
Uncle Ben and Jerry.
Fucking it.
That's his canon event.
Yeah.
And his Spider-Cat's canon event is Shane Dawson.
Hey.
Jesus Christ. Okay. And I like how they laid in. I will also say I like how they use this movie as well to sort of just because clearly the cast for the next one is going to be the biggest, but I like how they just set up all these little roles that are going to come back. Obviously, we talked about Sandberg as Ben Reilly. I would imagine he's going to have a bigger role in the next one to some extent, considering it seems like Miguel sort of deputizes him, although he seems rather useless, so I don't know why
Yeah.
you would deputize that guy, but
Yeah.
it seems like he turns to him. So I feel like he'll be in the next one a little more. Obviously not
Spider-Man.
Adam Sandler, but Amanda Stenberg as the VR Spider-Man, which was a cool little addition.
Yeah, that was fun.
So this was something that I was talking about with my friend after we saw the movie, which is obviously it ends on a cliffhanger of Miguel's in the wrong universe. He's been captured by, which by the way, if anyone hasn't read the credits, the official name of the character is Miles G. Morales. In a nod to the Peter B. Parker. He's captured by him and the other Uncle Aaron, and the Spider-Man team are going to look for him, essentially. So the question is, how long do you think they drag out that cliffhanger in the next one, right? Because logic says that they would know immediately go to that universe, like, because if you think about it for a second, what the machine does, it's like it scans for your DNA, and it's very clear that everybody who's a part of the Spider Society knows that he came from Universe 42, but Spider went to the wrong universe. Yeah. So it feels like you would know to go immediately there. So do you? But the other part of it is, which makes me think, I don't think they're going to hold on that cliffhanger very long. Like, I think the Spider people are going to find him relatively quick. But I think that cliffhanger is going to play a part in it because, I don't think they would have brought back Mahershala Ali if it wasn't for something important.
Yeah.
And B, if anyone, which obviously you can read the credits and figure this out, but if anyone didn't just notice listening to the movie, it's a different voice actor voicing Miles at the end. It's not Shamik Moore voicing him. They brought in an actor named Jarrell Jerome, who's best known for being in the film Moonlight when he was a teenager, and he's also in the Ava DuVernay series When They See Us. So he's very much like another heavy dramatic actor that they've brought into this film. And that's what makes me think that that's going to be a huge part of the next movie, because why would you bring actors like that into this if you're not going to do something with them?
Right.
Yeah,
I think with that, I don't think you're going to see Miles in that world for half the movie. I think 10 minutes is probably about the amount of time at the most you're going to have him there. But I do think they're not just going to pop up in, was it Earth 42? They're not going to pop up right away there. I think they're going to, kind of look at different worlds and be like, oh, wrong world. Oh, wrong world. And I think it'd be just like a fun little cameo if they had Emma Stone, like where you had that Spider-Gwen, see Gwen Stacy from the Andrew Garfield world, obviously taking place before she, snaps. But just like a fun little thing, just a fun thing where it's like, oh, I'm, are you me? Yeah. Oh, cool. And then she's like, oh, maybe that could be me. Or she's like, oh,
why are you so driven to force actors into this movie?
Well, I think it'd be fun. I'm just thinking, what could top the second one? The things they could do. That could be fun little cameos.
So that's actually a good discussion because, and maybe this is like, because we've had these discussions before, right? There's the realistic side of Hollywood, and then there's like what I think I should. Because I agree with you. Realistically, I think they're going to try and find a way to top it. Am I crazy for saying I don't think they need to top this movie in that sense? I think they need to just focus on actually delivering on the emotional elements of it. Like, I think just simply making a brilliant story and concluding this trilogy is more than enough to top it than stuffing in cameos. Because at that point, then they're literally just copying No Way Home.
Yeah, the story is the most important thing, which, I think that they're launching fireworks out there. I hear everyone go, I think he almost got hit by fireworks. Yeah, they're launching fireworks out there. But story is important. You got to make sure you do a story. And I trust them to deliver a great conclusion, a great story. But I think after they make sure they do that, they want to see, okay, what can we do to, up it? Because, every single trilogy, they're trying to up the previous movie. That's why I'm saying nothing crazy. I don't want to see Emma Stone pop up and fight the Spot. I don't want to see it. But kind of like, with what they did with the Venom thing where, they kind of pop up, they see Emma Stone, there's like a quick little discussion, and she's like, either you could be like, oh, that might be me one day, or this is what I should expect. My boyfriend Spider-Man, or my ex-boyfriend Spider-Man, now friend is Spider-Man. I don't know, whenever it would take place. It's just like a fun thing. I think they're gonna incorporate some fun stuff. That could be something they could do, and then eventually they'll get to the world. They'll get to 42, and it will be within 10 minutes of the opening. And you have a fight, or Miles is gonna fight Miles, and Miles will beat Miles, and then they'll get there, and then it's like, okay, we got to go, and then Miles might join Miles and them and go do the fight. Because I think that's something that's probably going to happen. I think he's going to turn good, and I don't think you're going to have Mahershala Ali's. I don't think you're going to have Uncle pop up.
Oh, see, my thought process is, and then Jacob, if you guys want to chime in, go ahead. My thought process with this is, and this is just my assumption, I think because they set up very early in the film that Miles has very conflicted feelings towards his uncle, because he obviously loves him and he loves the relationship he had. But then there's also, and it's very quickly thrown in, there's that element of like, oh yeah, he was also a villain. And I think the reason they've brought the character back through this multiversal thing is because I think they're going to use the version of Uncle Aaron that's alive, who's clearly not as committed a villain if he's not literally being the Prowler. It seems like Miles is sort of the brains in this universe. I think they'll use him to sort of redeem Uncle Aaron and give Miles that closure. I think the main Miles will say something to him that gets him to flip, and maybe that goes one further and gets the Miles of that universe to also flip. But I think they'll use him to sort of redeem and give him that closure of someone I looked up to for all of my life who inspired me to be a better person was actually a villain.
Right. Yeah, I think that definitely can happen.
Jake,
I'm going to go check
what
my
are your
dogs.
thoughts? Go ahead, you're good.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. That'd be a good idea. I think we'll probably get a little more time than 10 minutes with that. 20, half an hour in that territory. I think
especially if it's a similar runtime, like people may not realize it, but the opening of this film with Gwen Stacy before they cut to Miles is 20 minutes. So they clearly have no issue taking their time with it if they feel they need to.
Yep, there it is. And we're going to start off with let's do this one more time, some variant on that. And we do that. That's where I think is the logical start point. Because why break what is a good thing at this point?
I feel like if they do that, I think that the best creative choice they could do with that is do the anti version of that and establish how this universe became the way it did.
Okay.
Like from evil Miles' perspective, I guess is how you would put.
Good call.
Like the like how did this universe get the way it did? How did crime take over? Because you have to imagine, and this is obviously like the flaw with comic books, is like villains don't exist until a hero shows up. It seems like it's very rare you have a comic book world where villains are just fucking things up, and then someone wakes up one day and is like, "Yo, I'm gonna like stop this shit," because somebody has to. Like it seems like one always comes with the other. So
a classic J. Jonah logic.
You wonder how that like descends into the chaos that it's in. I think that'd be cool. Jacob, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not I'm not sure how they're gonna handle it. I don't think 10 minutes will be spent, especially if the runtime is 220, or whatever. I don't know if they're going to up the runtime and try to make it even more epic, but give me
1 minute.
Give me a 3-hour Spiderverse movie, and I'm going to be in because I think they've nailed it with these first two. But also don't give me a 3-hour Spiderverse movie. I was just kidding.
No, please give me 3 hours of this. I would have been down for 5 hours of that shit.
But yeah, no, I think I agree with some of what you were saying. Where I think using this version of Uncle Aaron to give that closure, I think is a smart decision. I think So no, I'm kind of on board with what you've been saying, Aaron, and just I don't like to play like, oh, what's gonna happen? Like I'm just ready. Just give me the movie.
Yeah. It feels like they set up the redemption too.
Yeah,
and
we'll talk about that in a second before the show closes out. So, was there anything else, very briefly, Jake or Jacob, that you guys didn't get to bring up? You want to run out really quickly?
Yep, I got a couple things. Shout out Da Vinci Vulture. We didn't talk about that at all. That was
yeah.
really
That
was
fucking
fun.
gorgeous. The acting, the voice acting was solid. The concept was fucking mind blowing. And what a way to just kick off this movie. They're like letting you know we're going even more bonkers than we went last time.
Also, with that again, this is seeing it 3 times and deciding to finally read the credits. I love that, and again, I have to feel that this is pulled from the comics.
Adriano, Tumani, is it?
Adriano Tumo is the
Tumo, okay.
Tuzo is like just stick an O at the end of his name. Italian, boom. That's
It's brilliant. Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to throw out, the nod to Avatar, fucking when Miguel O'Hara turns to his assistant and says, "Do the thing." Fucking, I love that. That's a shout out to Avatar: The Legend of Korra. So
yeah,
that was really sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. Jacob, anything you didn't get to run out that you wanted to before you should get out of here? Shout out.
I just wanted to echo the opening as well. I think the opening to this movie is just incredible and probably, in my opinion, just the best opening to a movie. I think it sets up. I think that this is going to be more focused on Gwen, or give Gwen more of a focus, which I think was a very smart decision because after seeing it twice, I think this is definitely you could make the argument that this is a Gwen Stacy movie with Miles Morales, featuring Miles Morales. So great opening. Like I loved it. You could keep just show me that as like a short film, and I would watch that and be completely satisfied. You give me 2 more hours on top of that, and oh my goodness.
It does sort of feel like a short film, like a prologue they'd release online. You know what I mean? That's like, no, we're just going to put this up the movie because it's the movie. The last thing I'll shout out, just because it's a thing I loved with the first one, and I enjoyed this one as well. The soundtrack is excellent. This time, the last one obviously was done by the composer of the film. This time they brought in a rap producer, Metro Boomin, to do it. Overall, I've listened to the album multiple times. I think as individual songs, I probably like the first one a bit better. But if you're somebody who likes listening to albums, I think as an album experience, this one works a lot better. The songs they're not literally organized the way they are in the film, but they're sort of done in such a way where you kind of follow the emotions that the characters are feeling throughout the movie. To some extent with the way that it's organized. They also made the choice of, in addition to like him being a producer and using transitions and things like that from his normal albums, bringing that here. They use dialogue from the film, so clips of the actors' dialogue are sprinkled in at the beginning and ends of different songs to sort of thematically connect them, which I think was just a really cool choice to sort of make it stand out. Of course, obviously, as with the first one, it's all connected to if you enjoy hip hop and rap, because that's what most of it is. And of course, with it being Metro Boomin, this one's a lot more centralized, whereas the first album had a lot of underground artists and some lesser known people. This one is very much just for anyone who knows hip hop, there's a couple Sway Lee features, there's a couple ASAP Rocky features, there's a couple 21 Savage features. Like it's very much the same group of rappers that he would normally work with that are on this album. And that's not to say it's bad by any means. It's very, very well put together.
Yeah, I've been listening to Calling on repeat. I think that song is great.
I think that's great. I think Annihilate is the most Lil Wayne verse I've heard in a while. That is go if you're like overall it is nowhere near the best song on that album. Outside of the beat, the production's incredible for it because it's very cinematic. You're right. Calling's great. Am I Dreaming, which is one that most people will probably recognize because it's the one that plays during the cinematic credits, which most people sat through to watch. That one's also really, really good. There's some great songs on there. So we'll jump into to close it out really quick, as we do every week, because Matt and I are the only 2 consistent people here. For anyone who wants to keep track, we're presenting our scores for each film at the end. I don't think I've made it a secret. I already said it's the best film of the year. I give this movie a 10 out of 10. I think it's absolutely stellar. It is one of the best films I've seen in a very, very long time. And then, Matt, I'll turn it over to you as well, since you were the only one who didn't close as well. You're a little lower than me. You're at an 8.5. Still an excellent, excellent score. Clearly a recommendation. What are your final closeout thoughts?
Yeah, and I mean, you could probably, I'll probably bump it up to like 8.75 or 9 if I see it, a couple more times. Like I said, I think, and this is not, I don't think there's anything that is bad in this movie, if I'll be honest. What brought it down to an 8.5 is really the first half where I really enjoyed it. I had a good time watching the movie. It just
Sorry,
didn't.
I don't want to interrupt you real quick. Chris, we talked about it multiple
Yeah, we
times
did, Tom.
earlier in the
I
episode. You'll just
mentioned
have
it,
to go back and
Chris.
find it.
I mentioned it. The ears, they're very important tools that we as humans have. Anyway, he knows I'm messing with him. He knows I'm kidding. Or else I
Man, you're
wouldn't
trying to
do
piss
that.
everybody off tonight.
But yeah,
8.5.
Chinese people, Asian folk in general that weren't too happy with the Tilda Swinton casting and the Asian one made them upset too. Yeah, you missed it, Jake. I said black people are not appreciated as much in China, which is true. Little Mermaid made $3.5 million because the Chinese government hates black people. Anyway, but the reason why this movie would do well in China is because you have other people that are like, fine, we have white guy Jake Johnson in this movie. But no, I give it 8.5. Mostly
For how
mostly
much he's
because of
actually in this movie, I would love to see a trailer try and pitch him as the main character.
Yeah, they tried. They tried. It's just the baby scenes with him and the baby. But it's really the first half though. I enjoyed the first half for sure, and I didn't think the music was quite as good in this one compared to the first one. Although I think the score is like not even just the songs they chose, but the score itself I think is great in this movie. I think the Earth 42 version of Miles, his score, with the whole Prowler theme mixed in there too, I think that's great. But it's really the first half I thought was good, but it wasn't knocking my socks off or anything like that. It's really, I'm kind of at the point now, it's really tough for me to give anything a 10 out of 10. I'm more strict, I think, more than I have been in the past, but really good movie, really enjoyed it. And I thought, and maybe this is kind of a nod to a certain interview, but that scene, where you have Miguel, he's like, yeah, and he's talking about Doctor Strange and Peter Parker, he's talking about Earth 199999. Kevin Feige in the MCU is called it Earth 616. The actress that played Miss Marvel's like, I don't believe you. It's not 616. It's actually Earth 19999. So I thought, oh, okay, maybe they kind of took a little. They kind of pulled from that. I thought that was kind of a fun little thing they did as well. But really enjoyed this movie. It's my second favorite movie of the year. It did pass Air. Yeah, Fair Play is my number one. Air was my number two. Now it's Across the Spiderverse. Just a masterclass in animation.
For what it's worth, I'll just, because we didn't talk about it when it released, I'll throw it out there. Air was my number one. I'd said that previously on the show. Literally days before I saw Spiderverse, I got to see one of the last showings in a theater near me of Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. That's my number two. I think that movie is excellent.
Wow.
If you can get into, because it's one of those movies where you sort of have to preface, if you can get into watching a movie that is about teenage girls desperately wanting to go through puberty, because it's a topic not everybody wants to sit through.
I fucking love Turning Red.
Well, people freaked out about Turning Red, so they might not be all for that movie. They thought it was about girls having periods. It's like it's a fuzzy.
No, they also want to desperately increase their bust size. Okay, it's more than just about periods.
Now, about the Margaret. Does Margaret, I assume, is the main character?
Yes.
Does she turn into a big giant red panda in this movie?
I can safely say, sorry, spoilers. No, she doesn't.
Fuck that.
Turning Red is not about puberty. So all you call me groomers, suck it.
All right, and I think the only more controversial note we could end this topic on, which I'm going to, and then we're going to move forward, is a shout out to all the people that review bombed The Little Mermaid and called it woke, just to turn around and support this movie, which contains multiple images of Black Lives Matter support and trans kids support. You're welcome, assholes. You supported the real woke movie.
You like this movie? You're groomers, according to a lot of these people's knowledge.
With that said, we're going to go ahead and close out the show. And we're gonna run through just some real stories quickly. The segment is buy or sell, as I stole from the AMC days. We're gonna run through a couple of the stories. Basically, I'm gonna read you the prompt. I'm gonna give you a concept, and then just very quickly, 1 or 2 lines. You're gonna tell me whether you buy or sell what's happening. So with that said, we're gonna start with some Spider-Man news that we had. In a new story connected to the film, producers Phil Lord and Chris Miller announced that this week that Beyond the Spider-Verse will now be the conclusion of the series. Previously, a trilogy was announced, but Sony had said that Across and Beyond the Spider-Verse was the second film split into 2, meaning that they had intended for there to be 4 films. Lord and Miller now state that they feel Beyond is a better overall conclusion than the planned 4th film, and the amount of effort that these films take to make Beyond would just serve as a better conclusion. While Lord and Miller will continue to executive produce any spin-offs Sony would like to make, they, as well as the film's directors, Joaquin DeSantos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson, will all be finished actively being involved once completion of Beyond is done. Matt, buy or sell Beyond being the end of this trilogy?
I buy, they got a plan. Seems like they're sticking to that plan. Feels like this is a trilogy. I don't really need to see a 4th movie. I feel like doing 3 is perfectly fine for the story. Yes, I'm sure we'll get multiple spin-offs. Sure, we'll get plenty of those. But when it comes to Miles' story, it does feel like 3 is a good way to conclude. Now, they might be doing a live-action Gwen Stacy. I don't know if you heard that or not, Aaron. But like a
among
Spider
all the
Gwen,
other different things. But
Spider-Gwen. And somebody brought this up. I'll pull it up. Here's some casting that could be possible. This is the rumored for who's going to play live action Gwen Stacy. I assume in Beyond the Spider-Verse, because why else would you do it here? Unless they do a live action Spider-Gwen. But one's her, interesting, right? From Wednesday, you have her. Then you have her, from Game of Thrones. And then this is kind of going to be controversial, but Jonathan Banks was the 4th one somebody brought up as a potential Gwen Stacy. I think Jonathan Banks would be great as Gwen Stacy. Be very, very challenging.
Jacob, buy or sell?
Yeah, I buy it. I think 3 movies is good to kind of tell the story that they want to tell, and then they've introduced so many characters that I think you have plenty of Spider people that you can make content with for years. So I buy it.
Jake,
I'll buy it. This very much echoes Ted Lasso for me in that I love the shit out of it, and I adore these characters, and I will take all that they give me. But at some point, you gotta let the thing you love go, and end on a high note. Better than fucking driving it into the ground for 7 seasons or 7 movies, man.
We can talk off camera, but that may not be the end of that show, but that's a different show. With that said, second story, also Spider-Verse related. They revealed this week that Beyond the Spider-Verse may move from its current March 29th, 2024 release date. The producers have said they want to meet the release date if humanly possible, but with the current writer's strike and pending actors strike, Lord and Miller understand that they won't be able to get everything recorded before the end of this month, which is when the actors strike is set to begin, and they'll be forced to sort of play it by ear in terms of when they can schedule to get the recordings completed. At the very least, they said if everything goes worst case scenario, it will make it to theaters by December 2024. 2025 is not an option, although they said definitely any earlier than that is what they're going to do, with March being the goal. Jacob, buy or sell the movie potentially moving?
Wishful thinking, sell. I don't want this to be delayed. I want to see it. So, but realistically, if there's a strike that happens, then unfortunately you're gonna have to buy it. But,
Jake?
Yeah.
Take as much time as you need for whatever circumstances. Give me the best movie possible. I would rather see it in March, but I can wait.
Oh, you're talking to me now.
Yes.
Buy or sell, say it again.
Basically just that the movie will be moved.
I buy it. I do think it's going to get delayed. Everything gets delayed these days anyway. You have the writer's strike going on right now. You're gonna have the actor strike going on. And then also Haley Steinfeld hasn't recorded her lines yet. I think it's going to get delayed. I don't think it's going to be for a year. I think you'll probably see like a 6-month, 8-month delay. So I do think it's still coming out in 2024, but it's not going to come out in March. It'll probably come out in like November, December. So
That's a very long delay. All right, so another topic we had tonight that we're booting because we wanted to talk about Spiderverse was this week. Zack Snyder released through Vanity Fair the first look at his new film Rebel Moon. I am going to put a warning out here. If you haven't read the Vanity Fair article, just don't read it, because it is it's so extensively detailed in its plot synopsis that it's basically giving you the entire first act of the film. And if you don't want to be spoiled on a film months in advance of its release, don't do it. I don't know who at Netflix cleared them to put that much information in it, but they did. But that said, the part of it that I wanted to ask about the buy or sell is, in all of this news, which we may talk about next week if there's not enough stories going around, is Snyder basically confirmed that 2 versions of the film will be released. There will be the actual theatrical cut, quote unquote, which is a PG-13 cut of the film that is intended to serve as the franchise starter. But he said because fans of his love extended films, they are already working on a Snyder version of the film, which will be an R-rated extended cut of the movie that isn't meant to be considered canon for the franchise, but is just more for the people who love his work. So Jake, buy or sell 2 versions of the movie releasing basically from launch?
Release the Snyder Cut.
Matt?
I buy it. I saw some of the pictures they used and whatnot. I think this looks really cool. I know a lot of people want him to go back to DC and finish out his trilogy. I would like to see him, instead of doing that stuff, which if you saw any of my stuff when the Snyder Cut came out, I was like, oh, I want a sequel. I want to see more, because I thought his version too long, but it was, it was a good movie. It's well done. Really, really enjoyed the movie. But I want to see him do things like this. I think visually, especially, this is going to be great. Rebel Moon. And I want to see him create things. So I buy the pictures. The movie looks good. Everything we've seen. Anyway, I haven't seen a trailer, which we'll probably get this week if I had to guess. If they're starting to release pictures and doing these articles, probably get a trailer. But I buy.
Jacob, buy or sell 2 cuts of the film existing?
Oh, it's 2 cuts. Fuck. I thought.
Yeah, not the movie on a whole.
I thought we were talking pictures. Sell.
Stop reading other articles, Matt.
Sell. It's Netflix. Why do we need a director's cut? Just it's a streaming thing. Just release the movie. We look.
Fuck you. You already said bye.
No, that's fine. Jacob,
Zach,
what are your
thoughts? You don't need to do multiple cuts. It's Netflix. Release your movie. Okay, you have freedom.
Yeah, but if it sounds like one is more, R-rated, then I could slightly buy it.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm kind of on Matt's side. This story's a week old, but I'm throwing it in here because I just think it's interesting to talk about. Last week, I guess technically, Universal announced the stars of its upcoming live-action remake of How to Train Your Dragon. The Black Phones, Mason Thames, and The Last of Us actress Nico Parker have been cast in the roles of Hiccup and Astrid, respectively, as reported by THR. Casting is actively happening for the film, as that's all they can effectively do now that the people are on strike. So more casting announcements should be coming soon. I kept the picture in here to bring up just in case people don't know who they are. They're both younger actors, obviously. So, Jacob, I'll start with you just because to some extent, realistically, and I think at one point jokingly when we did the 2022 films, I dubbed you the animation guy. Buy or sell the casting in this live action adaptation?
I'm unfamiliar with the girl, but I have seen Black Phone, and yeah, he gives a decent performance. So I'm kind of indifferent just because I don't know their work that much. I'd rather there just not be a live action How to Train Your Dragon.
Fair enough.
So Yeah.
Jake, buy or sell the casting?
Those two cats look like fucking animated characters, so I'm buying it. I mean,
And Matt.
not overly excited for the film, but buy.
China would sell. I'm gonna buy. I like. Yeah, it's gonna tank.
Yeah, I just have to say,
But,
sorry, I have to comment on this real quick. The level that, and admittedly, a lot of them probably live in Florida, the level that some of these people will go to go against any kind of race changing where it really doesn't, like, I saw people on social media talking about the realism of the Viking time period and, like, are they making Astrid a slave because she's like, it's a fucking kids film, guys. Who the
It's
fuck
fucking
cares?
dinosaurs, or not dinosaurs,
Grow
dragons.
up, like,
It's about dragons. It's
like,
dragons.
grow
Were there
the fuck
dragons
up.
in the time of the Vikings? No, there were not. Okay, so get out of your mama's basement. Get a life touch. Here, hold on. You know what? I'm gonna grab something. I have
I might actually be moving out of my parents' house soon. Spoiler alert.
got an apartment.
That's
Here,
what's up.
this looks like grass. You know, to these
Touch
people
grass.
from Alabama, Florida, Indiana, all Midwest in general, and just all these places that are like, oh, they recasted this girl. They should have made her white. She's black. This movie's gonna stink. Whoa, touch some grass. Just touch some grass. And China, government of China, touch the grass, because nobody gives a fuck. You're a small minority. You freaked out about The Last of Us. Didn't work at all. You know, you didn't like the actress they chose to play Ellie. You know, you made fun of her. Guess what? It's a massive, massive show. You freaked out. I freaked out about House of the Dragon because Game of Thrones was woke. Well, guess what? House of the Dragon, it did quite well. You're a small minority that's likely on one side of the political side. And you probably follow geeks and gamers, and you can't come up with a thought on your own. You have to have other people come up with a thought for you. And guess what? You're being lied to by these people you follow, geeks and gamers. Guess what? Jeremy Griggs, he's a liar. He actually loves The Force Awakens. He's deceiving you. He thought Kylo Ren was a better villain than Darth Vader. This is all true. Yeah, the quartering. Guess what? The quartering wants to be a cuck. He wants and this is what he said himself. He dreams about Gina Carano being banged by all these guys, and then she goes, oh, you know what, I need to actually go with Jeremy from the quartering because he's just a nice guy. So while I'm getting railed and then he's there just watching, supporting me, I need to go to him. He's the one. Like, these people you follow that you get your thoughts and opinions on based on what these low lives who are grifting, you know, what they come up with. Guess what? I guarantee people are gonna be like, oh, she's black. This movie's woke. This movie's gonna be woke. Anyway, I buy the casting. I do. The little I saw of her, I thought she was really good in Last of Us. I thought she gave a good performance. And then the kid from the Black Phone, I thought he was great in the Black Phone. I really liked his performance. So I think this movie shouldn't be happening at all. Just like with Moana, shouldn't be happening. Why are we remaking these movies? Okay, like, I'm shocked that Shrek isn't getting a live action remake. I'm really shocked that look, it's probably already in a pipeline. If this movie does
Shrek
well,
is
you're
love.
gonna
Shrek
see
is
DreamWorks
life.
movies get it. But yeah, Shrek is love. Shrek is life. It's all ogre now. But I think they're gonna have a good cast for this movie, even though it shouldn't happen. But yeah, the people that live in their basements that, you know, that we call Hicks, yeah, they're gonna complain. They're gonna whine. You know, they're people I don't want following anything I do anyway. So if I piss them off, then they can go cry and suck on their mom's tit. I don't care. But
Christ.
Look, you know what? And somebody was complaining about
all right. Hold on. But before this goes down another tangent, I had one more story, but I don't think I can top whatever the hell just happened there. So I'm just gonna say, shout out to Noah, shout out to Jake, shout out to Jacob,
yes,
Matt, of course, as always. thank you guys for watching. Movie Battleground uploads are back up and running. There's a lot in the pipe, so they're gonna just kind of keep coming until we're out of them.
That's what she said.
Expect a lot of matches over the next few weeks, and I hope you guys enjoy them. Have a great night, everybody. We will see you next week for the spoiler discussion on Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, which won't garner nearly as much attention as this spoiler discussion. See ya.